I'll recognize her, and
Thank
she
you,
may begin.
Madam President. Madam President, before I go into my contribution, I just wanted to, with your leave, bring condolences to my friend Shakara Russell Trott and her mother, Patty Russell, and the entire family in Grand Bahama on the mourn and the loss of her father, Mr. Ray Russell. I know they'll be laying him to rest this Saturday, and I have many memories of him, childhood and some in my older days. But the one I would stand and remember is in 2005. I had to do a course as a part of my degree, associate's degree at College of the Bahamas, and it was in being offered in the last semester. So I decided to do it in Grand Bahama. And Mr. Ray Russell, Miss Patty Russell, and the entire family took me in for that period of the summer in Grand Bahama. They took care of me and definitely like a father, you know? And so I know what he meant to that family. And it was indeed a shock to hear of his passing. I pray for their comfort during this time and pray that his soul continues to rest in peace. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, as to the extension of the state of emergency, Madam President, I speak to you today as a proud Bahamian who loves her country dearly. And it is out of that love that I stand up for my people each day to shed light on the issues that are most pertinent to their daily struggle. We are a strong and proud people in the Bahamas, greeting one another with a smile, and even when we are hurting inside. It is not often that we let people in to see our pain or put it out there for the world to see. I think what concerns me the most as I speak to Bahamians from all walks of life is how much this pandemic has worn away at our reserves of resilience. People can no longer hide their pain. Many are telling me that they don't know how they're going to make it through this year. Our people are fighting their hardest to make it through another year of COVID-19. So one thing that you can be absolutely sure of is that no one has more of a vested interest in seeing this pandemic come to an end than those who do not know where their next meal is going to come from or where they will lay their head to sleep tonight. Madam President, contrary to all the scolding and lambasting that certain authorities have done during their press conferences, the Bahamian people have been overwhelmingly compliant with the very strict regime that was thrust upon them for the better part of a year. The people have done their part to slow the spread of COVID-19. Madam President, given all they have sacrificed over the past year, who can blame them for expressing frustration, anger, and fear at the government's mismanagement of the pandemic during 2020, and the nerve of that same government to gloat about having a magic formula for success in 2021? It is a formula that consists solely of job-destroying, business-crushing lockdowns and little else beyond the bare minimum. Madam President, we know what comes next. Should another wave of COVID-19 hit our shores, the very same political figures who are claiming responsibility for COVID-19 progress when the numbers are low will disavow themselves and their policies of any responsibility when the numbers increase. Instead, the blame will be passed down to the Bahamian people. We know this hypocrisy well. These are the kind of government officials who admonish Bahamian people to follow all protocols while being photographed without a mask while eating with their buddies at restaurants. They force the Bahamian people over the hill businesses to shut their doors while giving special permission to their big business friends. And I mention at this point that even in the conversation in the other place, when there were comments about the Encouragement Act and why certain hotels or a certain liquor store was allowed to be open because of them being a part of an Encouragement Act, I pause here just to state that the big game is a hotel in Bimini, and their liquor store was closed. The liquor store at the Hilton in Bimini was closed. And Big John's in Bimini also has Encouragement Act where they were not allowed to open. So no one is advocating for everyone to go about themselves and be irresponsible. All we are saying is make the level feel plain, clear, and fair for everyone. So some say there's no limit to the shameless favoritism and hypocrisy on display. Is there any wonder why Bahamians are worried? Judged by its actions, many are concerned that this government is not governing for the benefit of all Bahamians. People are stuck in one of the worst situations of their life with a government that they don't believe have their back. Madam President, meanwhile, government officials are making grandiose claims, congratulating themselves for a job well done. And I don't mean to rain on their parade, but I think it's far too early to pop the champagne. The global pandemic is still raging throughout the world, and the economic fallout is destroying lives every day. It's time to do the real work that they have been delaying for 10 months. It's time to come up with a real plan, a comprehensive plan that addresses all areas indicative of an effective government response. Let's begin by seeing a plan to stimulate local businesses and support Bahamian families. The current month-by-month piecemeal policy making isn't going to cut it. Madam President, will the unemployment benefits be extended for yet another month at the end of February? Nobody knows. But what we do know is that this pandemic will still be here. Tourism will still be at a standstill, and the economy will still be in tatters. Madam President, where is the long-term plan to feed the 100,000 plus Bahamians who rely on the food assistance program to supplement their nutritional needs? Funding for that program is scheduled to end in March. There are thousands of families who would be very comforted to know what the government plans to do by that date. It's less than 2 months away. But for the Bahamian people, Madam President, to receive any of this information, there must first be a plan. And it's becoming increasingly clear that there's no such plan in the works. Is the government strategy simply to begin each month hoping that the pandemic is done by the month's end? Will the Minister administration give the Bahamian people insight into the plans to secure the economy over the short term and stimulate a rebound over the medium and long term? In October of last year, the Economic Recovery Committee released a huge report, Madam President, full of suggestions. It's been several months now, and the government has not even released a statement indicating which of the suggestions will be prioritized. Instead, we got empty platitudes about marijuana legalization and a sovereign wealth fund that amounted to little more than conjecture. Madam President, we have launched a remote work visa program with very little marketing behind it. It's time for the government to dust some of these reports off and get to work. While they're at it, they can refer to the previous administration's National Development Plan if they need some inspiration on how to create a real roadmap for long-term prosperity. The Vaccine Committee, Madam President, was announced this month during the Prime Minister's New Year's address. This is yet another committee whose work has the potential to significantly impact the lives of Bahamians. I hope that this administration is allocating sufficient resources and support to this committee to get us caught up with the rest of the world. Some countries have vaccinated millions of people already. Others have not received the vaccine yet, but are putting in place strategic plans for vaccine rollout to ensure that the process goes smoothly. Within the region, Turks and Caicos and Barbados have already presented their plans to the citizens of their country. And just last week, the Cabinet of Jamaica approved the country's national COVID-19 deployment and vaccination interim plan and announced very specific information to the Jamaican public. Meanwhile, we're still trying to figure out our ticket number on the vaccine line. Madam President, U.S. President Joe Biden has recently referred to his country vaccination rollout as a dismal failure thus far. This is an outcome he attributes to inadequate planning. Luckily for the US, they have the resources to get back on track. The Bahamas, however, cannot afford to get this wrong. The government must step its game up when it comes to its planning and execution. Business as usual isn't good enough when lives and livelihoods are on the line. Madam President, if the cabinet has approved a vaccine strategy, then it should be released for public scrutiny immediately. And I will echo the Honorable Philip Brave Davis' recent statement asking for the government to report on the preparations being made for the potential outbreak of a new, more contagious variant of COVID-19. Extending the emergency order is not a plan. Is the Minister administration content to sit back and pretend to have a secret formula to controlling COVID-19 outbreaks while ignoring the approaching threat? Madam President, has the government ever addressed the issue of over 20,000 people who failed to comply with the 5-day travel testing protocols? If we are serious about controlling community spread, then we have to be diligent about enforcing these protocols to ensure that any imported cases are quickly identified and isolated. Will the Bahamian public get an update on what the compliance numbers are now? Throughout this pandemic, Madam President, the Minister administration failed the Bahamian people. They have failed to present an adequate plan while spending our tax dollars on NIB contributions and bragging about it as if they are doing us a favor. They blame ordinary people when numbers are high and then start singing their own praises when numbers are low. The situation is constantly evolving, and there's still a lot of work to do. The GCI COVID rankings, Madam President, that had us ranked last in the world just a few months ago, still has us ranked 125 out of 180 countries for our COVID-19 responses. Was this recent period of lower infection rates not the perfect time to create a comprehensive strategy to address the public health and economic needs of the Bahamian people? Please do not allow this to cause you to squander the opportunity. And I comment briefly on the Progressive Party, Liberal Party 10-point plan that was released months ago during the spread of the COVID-19 to assist and guide this government in that process. And our Senator Davil was one of the co-chairs of our COVID-19 task force. And I recall Senator Boswick earlier speaking on our 10-point plan. But I take this time to remind her that when I mentioned our 10-point plan months ago, and I went through it step by step, she admittedly was very impressed with the plan, extremely impressed. But I think it's even embarrassing and unfortunate that she had to go back and research and try to build up a defense and stating that the government had already done such things. Because had she had an idea of what her government plan was, or what their policies would, or what their processes and procedures was, when I announced our 10-point plan, she would have known right away, right then and there, that it was already something that was being implemented by her government. But yet she piecemealed something together in defense of her government now to say they had already done this. Not good enough, because you were impressed when you heard our plan firstly. The opposition took the government to task from March 2020 regarding the general lack of planning and the lack of urgency in its response, because we would like to see clear indication of the next step for the country in the benefit of the Bahamian people. Here we are, preparing the country for several more months of emergency orders, forfeited rights, lockdowns, and ineffective policies. And I cannot support an extension of emergency orders against the backdrop of such utter incompetence and the lack of compassion displayed by this administration. Madam President, what was intended to be a short-term measure to allow us to respond quickly to the pandemic and come up with a sustainable plan has now become the plan itself. It is time to put proper legislative framework in place. that will return us to the terms of healthy democratic governance where power is not consolidated around one man. However, there's one thing about policy that defines whether it was a success or a failure, and it's how it's translated in the lives of the people who it was implemented to serve. And I think we would all agree on that. How the policy is executed, the policy which your government implemented, determines the success rate of the policy. Therefore, with that understanding, we have the side opposite me champion on for the government, patting themselves on the back and saying how successful they have brought us through the COVID crisis. Because in their mind, only the statistical data proves success to them. While statistics and numbers help to assess the benefit of the policies, the true test of success is how your policies, your lockdowns, your no free testing, your ban on inter-island travel, your 72-hour international travel return without the need for a PCR test policy. It is how those policies translate. And there's only one way you can find out. So I have been making my rounds in the Elizabeth constituency. And I can tell you with surety, I ain't campaigning, I just made my rounds in a constituency. And I can tell you with surety that your policy, the one that you are patting your back about, the one that you are celebrating, the one that you are bragging about brought you success. I can tell you with certainty that it has been a failure to the Bahamian people. Why? Because you hear the stories of 2 adult sisters who have had to move back home with their mother on Trinidad Avenue with their children because their policy, your policy, lacked any rental security. There was no stimulus plan to protect them from being evicted out of their place of residence after the hotel where they worked for over 30 years closed from March 2020. Nothing was in place to protect them, but something was in place to protect the hotels. And so they are back home with their mother, making ends meet and hoping that some way, somehow, there's a plan put in place sooner rather than later to help sustain all of them in the home. Madam President, I can tell you about the single mother who now has the responsibility to care for her granddaughter and her 2 daughters, who has been put out of her place of residence, now moving from place to place. She's the only earner in the home due to her daughter being laid off. She's working at the Elizabeth Clinic with no hazardous pay, afraid of bringing COVID in her home, fighting to get PPEs, no free testing, working shifts, having to clean up behind patients' mess, seeing day in and day out lines of Bahamians coming to the clinic looking for guidance and information on managing their mental health during COVID. See, that is where you test the success rate of your policy. The story of a single father who is known to be a breadwinner in his home with 2 daughters living with him on Hannah Road, a taxi driver having to go early in the morning to join the line for groceries, only to receive a $20 voucher. He has to go home to his daughters and tell them it's not enough to get you sanitary napkins and also buy grocery for the home. It's not enough to pay the electricity bill and also the rent. It's not enough to buy gas for his van and to buy water for them to drink. See, that is your policy. That's your policy. So you can pat your back all you want. You can brag about statistics. You can make all the slamming noise on the table all you want. The real test of your COVID policy is in the stories of the Bahamian people. And based on the many sad stories I have heard and shared with you today, I can tell you that your grade is not even on the scale. It's not an F. The scale broke when it was trying to grade your government. Amen. Madam President, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented and difficult situation. This administration has repeated that line so much that if we didn't know it was unprecedented before, we definitely know by now. But what we need now is compassionate and visionary leadership to guide us through these difficult times. While that kind of leadership seems to be lacking within this government, know that the Progressive Liberal Party stands ready to provide our expertise and assistance in whatever way we can. The Bahamian people deserve better leadership and a plan that responds to their current condition and aspirations. I end. Thank you, Madam President.
As many, the chair recognizes Senator Dorset.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, before I begin, I too would like to join the voices of my colleagues in this place in extending condolences to the families of Sir William Allen, also of the family of Zelma Dane, and Miss Peggy Phillips, all of whom I came to know quite well through politics. Many others have spoken about their contributions, so I won't go into that, except to say that they were all very contributing members of our community, of our society, and they will be sadly missed. I also want to extend condolences to the family of Mr. Aubinier, who I used to sit here and look at him sitting over there with the camera all the time. And it's just strange to come in and find that he's not here. It's sad that he, along with so many other young people, have fallen to this pandemic. And also, Madam President, Mr. Terence Bethel was a young man with whom I worked when I was in banking with British American Bank. We used to co-produce a newsletter for the bank at one point, and I got to know him quite well, a very nice young man. I considered him, we weren't very close friends outside of work, but we got along well together, and I liked him, I respected him, and we had a cordial relationship. After we both left the bank, I didn't get to see him very much until I saw him one day. I was campaigning in Eastwood in my red shirt, and Terence came down the same street wearing a yellow shirt with a picture of one Mr. Fred Mitchell. And we had a good laugh about it, but I told him that I would never speak to him again. Anyway, we met after that, and we continued our cordial relationship, and I was very saddened to hear of his passing because I feel that he too was someone who had a lot to contribute to this country. So my condolences to all those families, and may they all rest in peace. Madam President, I'm pleased to rise today in support of this resolution to extend the emergency orders through May of this year. We've come through a very difficult time since March of last year. And sometimes, Madam President, I sit back and reflect on where we were about this same time last year, when things seemed to be going well, and when we somewhat naively assumed that everything would continue to go well, that the world would continue to turn as we commanded it. And we thought that the worst thing that could have happened to us here in the Bahamas was Hurricane Dorian. And while I do not discount in any way the effects of Dorian, which were devastating on us, but Dorian was a one-time occurrence that we did not think, or we had good reason to believe we would not see again in our lifetimes, and something from which we could recover. And with the help of others, we had help from all over the world in responding to Dorian. And Madam President, we learned shortly thereafter that we were wrong. And in March of last year, we lost our innocence. We came to realize how vulnerable we were. Not only we as a small island nation, but we came to realize that we were vulnerable as part of the whole global network. For the whole world suddenly spun out of control. Economies all over the world screeched to a halt. And it's still happening today. That world is still, our world is still spinning. And we don't know how long it would go on or what form it will take. So as was said in here by so many others, we cannot afford now to let our guards down. Madam President, this past year has been very difficult on all of us. And the cost has been tremendous. The cost to us as individuals who found it difficult and sometimes impossible to pay our bills or even to feed our families. The cost to businesses which suffered or closed down completely as the economy slowed. And also, Madam President, the cost to our government, which had to fill the gaps and take up the slack as things grew worse. And to tell you the truth, Madam President, if I had aspired to be Prime Minister, as I'm sure some of us in here might be doing, what happened, what I observed this past year would have completely changed my mind. I would not want to be in the shoes of our Prime Minister. He has worked so hard and has done so much, but has taken so much criticism and even abuse for his efforts. I think he's lucky to have broad shoulders. Madam President, there is hope on the horizon. Our numbers are getting better. We are down now to single digits for new cases on a daily basis. And our deaths are higher than we would have wanted. Even one death is too much. But we see that the death rate is not increasing. The deaths are going down, and they're not increasing at a rapid rate compared to the number of cases and the number of persons that have recovered from COVID. And now a vaccine is available, and we expect that it will be made available to us here in the Bahamas shortly, in another month or so. So I repeat, this is not now the time to let our guard down. Let us bear in mind also that there are new strains. The Attorney General spoke this morning about the new strains that have now been recognized, that are showing up and that are reputed to be much more contagious and even more virulent than the strain we've experienced. We cannot afford to have it introduced here in any big way. And we have seen our neighbors to the north, the great United States of America, with all its resources, all its expertise, that even they are now experiencing alarming rates of increase in COVID-19, alarming rates of hospitalizations and deaths due to this pandemic. Their health systems are now very much compromised. And I've heard of places, states where they now have no ICU beds available, where they're maxed out because of this pandemic. And Madam President, I don't have to go into how connected we are to the United States, but you've heard the old saying, that when America sneezes, the whole world catches cold. And being as close as we are, we certainly are in line to catch cold if America sneezes. And Madam President, America has now imposed certain restrictions on persons entering their borders. And these restrictions are likely to affect our tourism negatively in a big way in the coming months. Now, I suspect, or perhaps I should say, I hope, that the United States will at some point see the wisdom of modifying these restrictions and waive some of the more stringent requirements for persons coming from countries which are handling the crisis well and whose numbers are trending down. And if we continue on our current track, I think we would be seen as a country that is relatively safe and which might be exempted, or which stands to be exempted from the harsher restrictions imposed by countries like the United States. So, Madam President, it really hasn't been easy. Our economy remains slow, and our uncertainty remains high. And we as a people have grown weary of it all. We are wary, Madam President, of the restrictions of our movements, of the restrictions in our day-to-day interactions. We're tired of wearing masks. I know I am. The only upside of that is I don't have to put on makeup. I put on my mask and go where I'm going. But we're still tired of it. We miss, and we will continue to miss, being able to congregate with our friends and our family at weddings, funerals, any other social gatherings. We are wary of having to toe lines, social distance, stand in the outside the banks and other businesses in the hot sun waiting for some kind of service because we have to stay. They can only let in so many people, and you have to stand 6 feet apart and all that. It's wearing everybody down. Madam President, we are not the only people experiencing this. I watch the news a lot to see what else is going on, what's going on in the rest of the world, and I see other states close to us in the US, we see other countries that have situations that are even worse. We've seen business areas that look like ghost towns. And I remember visiting Florida, where I go a lot. Last year, I had to go for extended periods of time in October, November, and part of December. And I was amazed as I went from place to place at how many businesses that were there when I last visited. When I came back, those businesses had closed. They had suffered the result of COVID. I'm amazed at how many people that I knew were out of work because of COVID. So, it's hard on us, and it may be small comfort, but we are not the only people going through this. The world is going through this. So to suggest that somehow our competent authority is trying to restrict our freedoms and take away our constitutional rights is absurd, because this is happening all over the world, and governments have to respond to it in a way that protects its people to the best of its ability. And while I'm on my feet, I'd just like to say that I get very offended when I hear people refer to the incompetent authority. And I tell myself, and I don't know who they're talking about, but we know what they're trying to say. And I think when a person has a job to do, it's a constitutional job. And he's doing it not by himself. He is acting on the advice and on consultation of other people who are in a position to know. I think to get here and refer to the incompetent authority is highly disrespectful. Remember, the Honorable Prime Minister is in that the Honorable Human Minister is in that position today, you may be in that position tomorrow and you will not want to be disrespected in that fashion. So, Madam President, I again say we have come too far to let go now. We have to press on and continue to fight until we bring the situation under control. We have to use whatever resources, whatever knowledge, whatever ammunition we have and try to do what we must so that at some point, hopefully in the near future, our country can come back to some sense of normality. We are a small country with limited resources, but we can be an example to the world. And in many ways, we have been an example in the way we have handled this crisis. We've seen ourselves come from very low in the ratings to come up very high. And I think we really need to all get together to do what we can to make it work. When we have this is a national crisis, this is a worldwide crisis. And we've seen what can happen when politics come into it. COVID doesn't care whether you're FNM, PLP, male, female, or anything. It strikes everybody. So you're just as likely, we're all in here, any one of us, we're as likely as anybody else to be affected and afflicted by it. So we cannot afford to let politics dictate what our approach to this should be. We must use common sense, love for our country, love for each other to try to get a hold of it. Madam President, we have come a long way. We're doing well, and we want to continue to do well. And for that, we have so many people to thank. I want, first of all, to thank our health professionals who have done yeoman's work, not only in fighting every day to bring people who are afflicted back to health. And remember now, they are working with all these people who have contracted COVID. But there are still many people in the hospitals with other needs, fighting other illnesses and other diseases that still need their care. So, it's almost a balancing act, and they're working around the clock, and they're working very hard. And I think we really ought to thank them for all the work that they've been doing. And in addition to that, they're also keeping the public informed, keeping the government informed, answering questions, giving advice and guidance, and even sitting in hospital wards, holding the hands of our sick loved ones and comforting them as they nurse them back to health. And unfortunately for some, comforting them when there's no one else around as they take their last breath. So we owe them a whole lot, and I thank them. And I also wish to thank the competent authority for his guidance and his steadfastness in the face of criticism, ridicule, and all manner of abuse. Through it all, he stood fast, guided by the advice of medical professionals and the advice of other stakeholders, other community professionals whose advice he sought and who agreed to come to the table and give him that advice. And he put in place guidelines and restrictions necessary to see us through to that point. We thank the government for taking the situation so seriously, for committing so much of its meager resources to helping the people of this country through the crisis, for doing so much to ensure that Bahamians, many of whom lost their jobs, did not go hungry, and were able to keep a roof over their heads. The government did not please everybody, and we did not always get it right. But Madam President, we did the best we could in the circumstances, and we were flexible enough to make changes as we went along to ease the discomfort of people and to make their lives more bearable in these unprecedented circumstances. We're not saying that we knew it all, but where we found that we may not have been as sensitive as we could have been, or we may not have been as thorough in setting out guidelines and restrictions as we could have been, we took the time to listen, to rethink, and to make changes as necessary. And I join my colleagues also in thanking the wonderful people of this country who determined that despite the inconvenience, they would comply with what the government asked it to do. We had some resistance along the way, some rebellion here and there, but without the broad compliance and understanding of the Bahamian people as a whole, we would not have been in the relatively good position in which we find ourselves today. Madam President, we are weary, but we must also be wary. We must be wary of those who oppose for the sake of opposing, those who criticize without offering solutions, those who say we are doing it wrong without saying how they will make it right. We have to be wary of those who, when invited to the table, who have all these great ideas, so they say, but when given an opportunity to sit down where it counts and put forward their ideas to have it considered and brought forward, refuse to do so. Madam President, we cannot allow the trees to obscure our view of the forest. We must always be in a position to see the big picture. And we cannot allow what are relatively small inconveniences to blur our view of what we stand to lose if we do not do this the right way. We cannot, Madam President, allow the naysayers to be the way makers in this fight, for they will not, and I believe they cannot, guide us to where we need to go. As we look at the big picture, Madam President, we must realize what is at stake if we do not stay the course. We want to move on, but we must move cautiously, carefully, and wisely. Madam President, that is why I support this resolution to extend the emergency orders. I think that in this, the uncertainty before us, last year, after the initial shutdown, things were looking good and everybody kind of relaxed, and then we saw numbers shoot up and everything went out of control. We did not anticipate that. So we don't know what will happen come May and June of this year or whenever. So we cannot afford to just sit back and say, oh, we're looking good, let's relax, let everything go back to normal. We don't know what normal is, not yet. But we cannot afford to let our guard down. The extension of the orders will not change anything drastically. That does not mean that there will automatically be lockdowns. It does not mean that. It does not mean that restrictions will increase. It simply gives the government, the competent authority, the authority to do what he considers needs to be done should the situation change, and to avoid any kind of flare-up of coronavirus. So, Madam President, I support this extension, as I think, all things considered, that is the wise thing to do. Thank you, Madam President.
The chair recognizes Senator Dotson.
Good afternoon, Madam President and fellow senators. It is indeed a pleasure to be able to stand here today and to be in the land of the living, because there are many who are not with us. I wish again to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for this appointment and the opportunity to represent Labour in this place, honorable place. I wish to also extend condolences, Madam President, to the family of MCM Peggy Phillips, especially her daughter Linda, who and I have fought shoulder to shoulder in the trade union movement, and who is a good friend. And to the family, of course, of Sir William Allen. Also to the family of the late Zelma Dean. And actually, when I first started teaching, and she was the principal at Government High when I was posted at Government High School. And me and her did not always agree. And we've had our confrontations. But in the end, I think we had a mutual respect for each other, and that to me is what is important. And I think later on, when she moved on to become the PS and all the things that she did, but she is with a very strong, determined woman who I saw a lot of similar qualities in myself. And, I appreciate the things she said to me and the guidance that she gave me as a novice teacher coming into the system, coming out of the health profession. I also wish to extend condolences to the family of Valentino. And actually, Valentino and me went to school together. We actually graduated together. He was in the class of 1976, and the class of 1976 also sends their condolences to his family as well. And he would always tease me when I came into the Senate, teasing me about the good old days back then. And as Johnny Ann said, it's very difficult to look over here and not see him sitting there, at the camera, because we got so used to seeing him. And, yes, they were the good old days. Very good old days. So I just want to stand today to speak. Also, I wish to extend condolences to the family of Terence Bethel. As Johnny Ann said, Terence was someone I got to know when we attended Unity Church together. That was the first time I met Terence, and over the years, we were very good friends. I would see him in a number of forums, and the last forum we were in together was the Women in Parliament debate that we had in the House of Assembly, and it was quite a shock when I saw the WhatsApp coming to say that he had passed, and I was like, good grief. And I think based on this, all the number of deaths that we've seen, it really makes you begin to sit back and reflect on your own life and what it is that you're doing and where it is that you're headed, and to realize that life is really fleeting and that tomorrow any of us could not be here. And that is something that we as Bahamians must realize and enjoy life, and enjoy particularly our family. And as my second grandson always tells me and reminds me, Justice is his name, and they think that I'm their wife. My three grandsons, they think they own me. And he would say to me, Grammy, remember, family is important. I'm like, you telling me that? And he says that to me all the time, you have to remember to take time for us. You're always doing this, always doing things for other people. But you have to remember that family is important too. And that has always stuck in my head, what he said at such a young age, to make such a profound statement to me, to say, you have to remember what is important in your life. I just wish to stand here today to also say thanks to the healthcare workers, all the nurses, the doctors, the lab technicians, the persons in the morgue, everybody who works in the healthcare profession, because I have been there and worked with you all, and I know the stress and strain that our healthcare system has gone through, and the much work that still needs to be done with our healthcare system and our hospitals. And also to our armed forces, security forces, for their hard work that they continue to do to enforce laws within our country, and it's not an easy task. The COVID-19 task force who goes around trying to enforce a lot of things that we ourselves should be enforcing, and realizing that we need to be a bit more disciplined ourselves for certain things to happen. I say to all Bahamians as I stand here today to ask that we continue to be vigilant by wearing our masks, washing our hands, keeping our 6 feet distance, staying away from large crowds. And again, we tend to, we see the numbers getting low and we sometimes say, oh, it's okay to do certain things. But the fight is not over. To all Bahamians is what I'd like to say, Madam President. It's not the time to let our guards down as there's a new strain of the virus that we must keep out of this country because we do not need that havoc. The havoc that we see that's happening in the UK, the havoc that we see that's happening in Barbados right now because they have 3 cases of the new COVID-19 virus. What's happening throughout Europe. They're all reminding us that this 3rd wave is out there and it is possible that it will come our way. We pray that it don't. We see that Barbados, who at one point was doing better than us in the fight, is now going into a 2-week lockdown. And because, like I said, they have 3 cases of the UK COVID-19 strain, and they're going to have an 11-hour nightly curfew. And they have 3 new cases. Persons going into Barbados must have a negative PCR test and have a rapid antigen test when they get there. And they must have a negative PCR test done within 72 hours before they travel. And only essential services in reality will be available in Barbados. So we're sitting here complaining, however, but we still continue to kind of be the role model for a number of countries to now follow. We see that the Bahamas was mentioned in the recent poll that was done to say that we were doing well in our fight against COVID despite what people are saying within the country. So we see that what many countries are now experiencing, we have pretty much under control, and we need to keep it that way. Madam President, however, we must stand vigilant and ready. And I heard the opposition speak of the stories of persons who have, have negative impacts from the COVID-19 and the restrictions and the fact that we're totally not open. But we could stand here today too and speak about stories where people have succeeded, where persons have risen up, opened new businesses, are doing well to the Small Business Development Center, and are meeting the needs of Bahamians, not just in the Bahamas or in the region, but also in the world. Because we now have to realize that the world is opened up and the international world is now our new market that we must now begin to look at. We all have felt the effects of the lockdowns. I don't like being locked down. But it made us realize how fickle life is and that we are living through such a time as this. And we'll look back several years from now and say, wow, we made it through that time. As a registered nurse, I've always been taught that prevention is better, but they say, than cure. And despite the fact that we have a vaccine being available, we must continue to support this government in this extension of the emergency powers, as it is being done in the best interest of all Bahamians. Madam President, the majority of Bahamians out there saying that we're doing a good job. But of course, there's always the persons who speak the loudest that you sometimes hear. But many times I meet persons and they say to me, tell the Prime Minister that he is doing a good job and to keep on doing what he is doing. That I've gotten many comments like that, and I was surprised because you only sometimes hear the negative, you never really hear the good. That some people, they appreciate and they come to you silently, almost, they're not persons who are loud or boisterous, but they come to you and say, tell the Prime Minister I pray for him every day. That, small things like that. And that is important. As a matter of fact, they say they pray for all of us. Right? Tell me, I keep praying for me because I need it. Right? So I applaud the Prime Minister for his calm, steady demeanor in dealing with all the criticisms and doing what he knows is right for the entire Bahamas. Because you know what I always say? The same person who's telling us open up, and we do, and the new strain get here, they can be very sad to say, why you open up?
That's right.
You understand me?
In nature.
So, as I always say, you're damn if you do and you're damn if you don't.
Very good say.
You must do what is in the best interest, and as a professional, health professional, he understands what is in the best interest. And I too understand why the decisions are being made, because the protection of all Bahamians, of our lives, is more important than anything else. And that is what this government is doing. And I always say that is why this government was put in place for a time like this. We may not realize it or why what happened in 2017 happened, but it happened for a reason. It happened that this F&M government was put in place to be headed by a doctor to govern at a time like this. So God always knows what he's doing and why he's doing it. I say that we've known too many persons who have passed through the COVID-19, and it's just amazing when you look at the Judsons and all the persons who have passed. If I stand here and start naming off the persons, it just begins to overwhelm you. And it's a pleasure now to see the low numbers, but we must keep the low numbers, and we must maintain those low numbers. And I look at the United States of America and the numbers that they are now experiencing. And as much as I love to travel, the fact is I have not traveled a whole lot. Senator Mitchell knows me, and him used to meet at the airport many times. Traveling together. That's my family, man. That's my family. You didn't know that, eh? See? You all didn't know that. I can pass it. But despite the fact that I love to travel, I am not interested at all in jumping on a plane and traveling to America right now. I promised my niece in Atlanta and my niece in Kentucky that I was coming to visit. Well, that is on pause now. Well, even do it online. Things will have to change dramatically in the United States before I visit. I prefer to go to other countries where there are more stringent measures being taken, similar to what we're doing, of course, for COVID-19. That's all right. Them people who wear no mask, they don't do anything right. I don't need to be around them at all. Of course, Madam President, as I said, we love to criticize, and this government continues to take that criticism with broad shoulders and make the difficult decisions to keep us all safe. Let us think about our country when we begin to criticize, and remember that COVID-19 is no respecter of age, sex, color, political party, or origin. We must keep our numbers down to ensure that our healthcare system is not overwhelmed. And we have to remember that the hospital is not just for COVID-19 patients. Mm-hmm. We have other patients with heart attacks, strokes, all manner of things still having to go to the hospital. So we cannot begin to think that only COVID-19 is what they're dealing with. They're not. They're dealing with all kinds of other emergencies that come up, and even some other things that come up at the same time. So we must ensure that our healthcare system is not overwhelmed. We must realize that our hospitals are dealing with a lot. I wish to thank the competent authority, the cabinet, and all members of parliament and senators for making the tough decisions in our best interests. I say to all of us, let's keeping on, and as the old people say, this too shall pass. This is not the time to fall or falter. It is now the time to rise up and ensure that we do what we must do, follow the government instructions, the health professionals' advice, and keep COVID-19 under control. Madam President, it is time now to stand united as Bahamians to continue the good fight until we can safely open up our economy and look at other economic suggestions and diversify our economy more. Let us continue to be strong, and even when difficulties come, we will not be discouraged, Madam President. Madam President, in closing, let us remember our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. So let us Bahamians remember that every time we fall, if we get up, we're doing okay. And as I always say, if you have to fall, tuck and roll and get back up. Thank you, Madam President.
As many. The chair recognizes Senator Sweeting.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm indeed grateful for the privilege to stand here today in this honorable place to give my contribution to the extension of the emergency powers. Since we were last in this place, we have lost some iconic people throughout the island of Eleuthera.
3 more.
I wish to extend my deepest condolences and prayers to the families of the late Cheryl Saunders of Harbour Island, James Pratt of Deep Creek, Nathaniel Hall, Milton Tynes, Will Bain, Graham Knowles, Petrola Kemp of Rock Sound, and also Harold Sands, better known as Peter of Governor's Harbour. You know Peter. We only had one lady passing out, but I mentioned her, man. but no, Roxanne, I done Roxanne. But Peter was a gentle soul. He used to play softball back in the day. But many meetings I used to go up to South. He used to drive me all the way back north and say, I gotta make sure you get home safe. I can't let nothing happen to you. So I seen him in the airport about 2 weeks ago. And this was a week before he passed. And he says, man, I'm glad I got to call you Senator. I say, now, I'm your driver, so don't give nobody that job. Unfortunately, next week he passed. But he's a good soul, a good fella from Governor's Harbour. But Madam President, in exactly 48 days, we will have been under this emergency order for 1 year. In this 1 year, the misery index has greatly increased for all Bahamians in almost every island throughout this country. In 10 months and 5 days, the government has yet to provide the Bahamian people with a plan for recovery and for the way forward. The government continues to rely on hopes rather than a concrete plan to get the country out of the economic mess created by the gross mishandling in the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian, and the same extended throughout this pandemic. We have all observed the changing of the guard in America, and we see the many changes in policy that are being immediately ushered in. What, therefore, is our plan? We continue to impress upon this government that lockdowns and curfews are not a plan. Many businesses are not able to reopen because there are no plans to revitalize the economy. There is no plan to regulate business operation to ensure compliance with the non-existent COVID-19 guidelines for operations throughout the Bahamas. Madam President, to piggyback on what Senator Joe Jacoby Davis spoke about in regards to persons not being able to pay their mortgage. I was speaking to a banker just this morning, and she was telling me that she is hurt because every day she is having to foreclose homes of persons that had good credit up until this point. And because they now don't have any jobs to the hotels, they are living with family members and they are not able to pay their mortgages because of lack of work. Madam President, the opposite spoke a few times today about playing politics. You know, it's interesting because I listened to the long-winded speech of emptiness and political rhetoric as a justification of the extension of the emergency orders in the House and the other place yesterday. You know, how does one rationalize using the inference of what the late Honorable Bernard Nottage would do? This really concerned me. You know, is the competent authority so devoid of ideas and plans that we must drag a man who is no longer with us into the political mix to gain brownie points? These were unwarranted and were done in a desperate attempt to attack the opposition. In the very least, we can say the opposition has put forth numerous plans to jumpstart this economy and also succinct measures to manage the coronavirus impact. The government has been experts at creating illusions. In my estimation, the great Houdini would have been jealous. This government has borrowed an exorbitant amount of money, and while that can be manageable if invested properly, the Bahamian people have yet to see any serious investment that will lead to easing their heavy burdens. We can see a monstrosity of a hotel that this government has sunk well over $100 million into with zero accountability, not knowing who's in charge anymore, no promises kept, and the economy of Grand Bahama in dire straits.
That's right.
We can see the miles of sidewalks and some hinder vehicular traffic, and yet the same cannot nourish the Bahamian people or provide them with a clear plan of a better future. The continued lack of transparency in how our public dollars are spent worries a lot of people. We see new platforms popping up with newly established companies providing services on behalf of the government, yet we wonder, did it go out to tender?
They don't know.
These extreme powers given to the competent authority seems to grant him rights and privileges to enter into any deal he deems is in the public interest. We have seen how many mom and pop stores have closed or are on the brink of closure. And I am fearful for what is going to happen in the upcoming months with small businesses in this country. As a business owner, Madam President, I feel the pinch. So I can't imagine what other persons who are just starting businesses and were not established are feeling at this time. As a family islander, I see the disparities in how different islands are treated during this pandemic. To date, there is no justification for the mainland Luther to be under such stringent regulations while Harbour Island and Spanish Wells enjoy all the freedoms it can be afforded. The medical advice cannot possibly be taken into account that mainlanders frequent both Spanish Wells and Harbour Island to work, to shop, to conduct business, and play. How do you justify these lockdowns as a means of prevention and protection when the data says there are no cases for the last few weeks? Is the data wrong? Are the numbers skewed? If not, why inflict this harsh punishment on the people? We can see from the dashboard provided by the professionals at the Ministry of Health that many of the family islands remain COVID-free. We can also see that the use of the rapid antigen test is being accepted by the great United States to gain entry to travel to a family island, but a PCR test is necessary. The cost between the two is wide, And it leads one to ask, why not use a rapid antigen test for Family Island travel and require the PCR test when returning from international destinations? The cost of the PCR test is extremely high for Family Islanders where there is little economic activity. For New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco, we must take into account the many hotel properties that are closed or have been closed for many months. The people cannot afford to continue to absorb the burden, the high cost of surviving in this country. Other jurisdictions have even given the PCR test for free. The Progressive Liberal Party has called for free testing, and we will continue to do so until testing is free for all citizens of the Bahamas. The Family Islands continue to suffer with the high cost of health care. Throughout the entire pandemic, we have seen that many sick patients and those with chronic illnesses are not being able to access health care at the public clinics and the lack of regular medications in their pharmacies. Why is it so difficult for people to access health care in this country in the midst of a pandemic? By creating this frustration, sick people are almost being forced to use the new private facilities. These private facilities continue to expand as more locations are popping up all over the country, all over Eleuthera. You see, we encourage the growth of the economy, but again, with a good doctor at the helm, we can't help but wonder what is going on in the health industry. Many people are now having to choose between their health care or buying food. The government has announced plans to end the food assistance program in March. On Family Islands, many people regularly visit and are on the social services assistance programs, but some of them have not even received assistance since October of last year. This continues to be very worrisome as the economy continues to plunge and jobs are scarce. People are at the maximum capacity for managing stress and crisis. We can see by the number of suicides recently, and people are just tapped out. The government has offered no plan, no hope, and no vision. The ultimate power rests in the hands of one man, the same man who has threatened to suspend our constitutional rights if he chooses to. I have said it before and I will say it again. These powers given to the competent authority and for such an extended period of time does not engender faith and trust the Bahamian people, nor has these extensions of powers offered any foreseeable solutions to the issues that we face. In fact, the people are beginning to believe the old saying, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Madam President, with that, I do not support the extension of these emergency orders.
As many? The chair recognizes Hanfield.
Thank you. Madam President, Senate colleagues, fellow Bahamians, good afternoon. I rise to lend my voice to this debate on whether to extend the state of emergency proclamation, the regulations, and the orders. With a population of approximately 400,000, Madam President, we have unfortunately lost about 175. As an optimist, what I see is that equates to out of every 2,000 people, we have been able to save 1,999 lives. Out of every 2,000 Bahamians, we have saved 1,999 lives. Just last week, Madam President, in the U.S., some 50,000 plus persons died. That's our neighbor directly to the north. Just last week, some 50,000 plus died. Yesterday, in fact, I checked after 11 o'clock last night, some 4,100 Americans died yesterday. And in the Bahamas, we have been able to save 1,999 lives out of every 2,000 people. So clearly, Madam President, we are doing something right. You know, the Bible encourages us to seek to understand and then to be understood. In other words, to listen and then speak. And I've sat and I've listened to 3 of the members of the opposition speak, and I've listened to the government members speak thus far. And if I gather or grasp anything from what I've heard today, Madam President, on the one hand, the government seeks to save lives and livelihood. On that very same hand, the government says it needs to extend the state of emergency so that it can continue to do what has been working. On the other hand, the opposition members seek to save lives and livelihood. I see both of us desiring the same outcome for our country and our people. The leader of the opposition in the other house yesterday would have said that he appreciates that this is the worst pandemic in our lifetime. The government says the very same thing. So again, I believe we all desire the same thing. We all appreciate the same predicament we are in. But the difference is that there can only be one leader and government at a time. You know, 1 + 4 is 5, and 2 + 3 is 5. So it then shows us as a people and as leaders, there's more than one way to do things. You know, and it interests me to hear our people refer to the competent authority, as was rightly pointed out by the Vice President, as the incompetent authority. You know, when, as I said a while ago, but of every 2,000 people, we've saved the lives of 1,999. So clearly, the competent authority, our healthcare workers, and our people have been doing something right. Madam President, I believe even the blind can see that we all desire the same outcome. For lives to be sold, for lives to be saved, and livelihoods to endure. What is obvious is that we differ apparently on how to achieve the very same goal. And that's okay, Madam President. It's okay to disagree. This is Parliament, and this is political leadership on display. This, in fact, is the stage for us to parley. As national leaders, however, while we may stand before these microphones and on these cameras and wax eloquently, we must be measured and show our followers, our supporters, and by extension, the Bahamian people, that it is okay to disagree passionately but respectfully. You see, the way the opposition may want to do things is not the only way. And I believe in giving credit where credit is due. Madam President, so far we have fared well, doing the things the way the government has been doing things. The challenge for the 16 senators, thank you. The challenge for the 16 senators today in a country of 400,000, Madam President, is to stand before these cameras, on these microphones, and remind our people that we all have an obligation, not just the Prime Minister, but that we all have an obligation to demand that every single one of us keep the other safe, because none of us is safe from COVID until all of us are safe from COVID. The challenge, Madam President, for the 16 senators in a country of 400,000 is for us to rise to the occasion, though we may express our difference in political views and how we would do things, but to remind our people that we must do everything in our power to keep them safe. that they must social distance, that they must wear their mask when in public, that they must limit indoor gatherings, and that they should sanitize their hands frequently, accepting again that nobody is safe until everybody is safe. And that is the challenge, Madam President. And I am up for the challenge. And Dr. Darwell, I'm not talking about running for Exuma challenge or running for my Kyle challenge. I have decided it's Carmichael. One way or the other. But Madam President, I understand. I understand the opposition. I understand the government's position. Each side wants to keep our people safe. Each side wants our economy to survive this pandemic. Each side has a different view on what to do and how to do it. And the truth is, everyone under the sound of my voice knows that there is more than one way to do things. Our challenge today, again, as senators, is while we wax eloquently, while encouraging our supporters and our following and our people, we must encourage them to observe the health advice and to continue to do that which has obviously been working. Madam President, though the debate today is about extending the state of emergency, I would not do my role here justice if I did not briefly agitate for the very many issues, Bahamian businesses, families, and voters. You see, Madam President, I stand here as a senator, but I wear another hat as an attorney. And civil trials have been suspended in this country in the magistrate court since March of last year. What that means, Madam President, is that justice has been denied to thousands of people in this country every month since March of 2020. You know, one of the things I pride myself on back in 2006 when I started practicing in that commercial field was that when persons are being sued by one of the banks, you know, one of the best things about being sued by a bank? The interest stops. That's one of the best things about being sued, you know, for those persons who may owe a bank. You know, that's one of the best things. You know, I've met so many persons saying that they've been served by a bank for a credit card, a car loan, or a mortgage, and they are terrified of going to court. They've been ducking the police for months, avoiding the bank for months. And I say to my friends and family or colleagues, that's a great thing to be sued. You know why? Because the moment you enter that judgment, the court stops the bank's interest. The moment that judgment is entered, the court stops the bank's interest. You know, so when I stand here as an attorney, again, and I agitate for this point, because, again, since March of last year, that means that there are thousands of Bahamians around this country who haven't been able to pay their credit cards, who have not been able to pay their car loans, who have not been able to pay their mortgage, and that interest is mounting every month because they haven't been able to appear before a judge and say, I acknowledge the debt. I do owe that $3,000. I do owe that $1,000. Stop it right there. And that's what happens. That interest stops right there. Secondly, Madam President, I know the debate is on the state of emergency, but during the state of emergency, the Prime Minister did a wonderful thing in November of last year in that Carmichael subdivision in setting aside 10% of the lots for persons with disabilities. Up to this morning, Madam President, not one person with a disability has received any approval for a lot. But I raised that point today because up to this morning, that disability community is still messaging me. Persons in that community who have savings saying, we're ready to go, Mr. Henfield, where do we go? And I've reached out myself. I've helped them apply online. I've downloaded forms. I've assisted them in every way possible, but yet still, nothing has happened. Madam President, even though the debate today is about extending the state of emergency, up to yesterday, I still had a Bahamian father at my office who is an amputee and couldn't come up the stairs, who says to me, I need legal representation to adopt my daughter, born out of wedlock. His daughter is born to a Haitian migrant. His child is not in school. He wants his child in school. He has to go through the process to adopt this girl. These things bother me, and they affect families. So I come here and I know it's annoying to hear me constantly agitating for the same things, but it's hurtful to stand at that car and see that man on one leg saying his child to school and my children are in school. Online learning, and his child can't even be registered in school. It hurts. There are Bahamian women, one too many, Madam President, who still have to wait until their children are 18 to apply for status as a Bahamian. How in the world can a Bahamian woman have a child who's not Bahamian? When will we fix these things? Even in the midst of this pandemic, Madam President, even in the midst of this pandemic, and you hear every one of us as a member of the Senate speak on the same page when we speak of the suffering of our people. We don't differ on politics on that point. The government doesn't deny that people are suffering. It is trying its best. The opposition raises the issue. I raise the issue. Any member of the government raise the issue. We are aware, we empathize, and we wish more can be done. But even in this pandemic, there are so many jitney drivers, taxi drivers, limo drivers, etc., that are still paying some private individual to lease a government plate. During the pandemic, they have no work. But they still got to pay the lease for that plate to somebody, a government plate. How could you rent me the government things? Imagine that. Just watch me, they say. Imagine that in a pandemic. These are things that I believe affect Bahamian families, Bahamian voters, and it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. It leaves a bad taste in their mouth. Madam President, the last intervention I will have is that there hasn't been an election in our family islands for the local government from last year due to this pandemic. There hasn't been an election in our family islands with respect to local government due to this pandemic. I still have persons reaching out to me asking, what is the next step? I won't even speak about the local government report for New Providence, Madam President. It still has not been tabled. You know, it still hasn't been tabled. There are some things that some people are vested in that they know will improve the quality of life for our people. And all they need is some direction, a word that this is where we're heading. This is the plan. We all know the phrase, Madam President, don't shoot the messenger. We know the phrase, don't shoot the messenger. I've always stood before this place and say, I draft the message. But I don't want you to come and think I am bringing the message to somebody. I don't shoot the messenger. I stand by what I said today. There are things that can improve the quality of life of our people, and there are low-lying fruits, and I believe we can do it. There's the suspension of those civil trials. That is adding a burden on people. It's increasing a debt on so many people. There are persons with disabilities ready to go to build their home in the midst of a pandemic that will give a family hope, pride. There are people still being arrested and convicted for small amounts of marijuana in 2021. We are still ruining the lives of our people, talking about a war on drugs. It is nothing but a war on the poor black man. It's not a war on drugs. But we are still arresting these young men for a simple joint, giving them a conviction and a police record. And when this pandemic is over and done with, who's going to hire them? These young men who we look to as the future of this country, what university are they going to go to? These are things that would improve the quality of life of our people, Madam President. I've accepted the challenge, Madam President. I indicated before, it's not Michael or Exuma. Michael, Senator folks, help is on the way. If you need any help in the Ministry of Local Government, help is on the way. Madam President, I return now to the emergency protection orders. Our collective focus, Madam President, as senators and as national leaders, henceforth, our collective focus henceforth must be securing the best vaccine after it's been tried and proven elsewhere. Emphasis on tried and proven elsewhere. Keeping our numbers down and our people safe and getting our economy back on track and improving the quality of life of our people. You know, Madam President, I tune out anybody that lives in doom and gloom. Just this morning, I posted on my page that my soul is on a budget. I can't afford to entertain any negativity, any doom and gloom, any doubt, and any division. What our people and our leaders need now more than ever is inspiration, encouragement, and motivation. When we stand here as national leaders, bear in mind there's only 16 of us in a country of 400,000. So what that equates to is 1 out of every 25,000 Bahamians gets to be a senator. Can you imagine that? Look at us. Each of us represents 1 out of 25,000 Bahamians. You know what our people need from us? Inspiration, motivation, encouragement, not doom and gloom. We have to remind them. I remember seeing this movie 300. This is Sparta, they said in the movie. This is who we are. We don't give up. We don't give in. We don't live in doubt. We will survive. We will prevail. But they need us, the 16 of us, to inspire them, to encourage them, and to motivate them. To do that, Madam President, I believe we can start today. Even though we may have different political views, even though we may have different ways of getting to 5, 1 + 4, 2 + 3, no matter what is said today, I believe we can be passionate and respectful of each other and remind our people, urging our people to protect themselves, to protect their families, to sanitize, to social distance, to avoid large gatherings. Some of us will vote in favor of the resolution. Call for your division. I will be the first to shout out. Yay. I vote in support. And I'm voting in support of what I have seen save 1,999 people out of every 2,000. I am voting in support of what I have seen work over the last 10 months. I just said earlier, 50,000 people died to our neighbor in the north last week. 175 we've lost, one too many. I sat across there from coming to this place, and Valentino would be on that camera, and it's so weird to be back here, and he's not there. And he always has a word of advice for me, to the point that he's driven to my office and sat down and given advice. Someone who I had no idea, a gentleman comes to one of my apartment places back in October last year to rent it. And in doing the viewing, you know, he says, okay, can I get your name? I said, Henfield. I said, what's your name? And he says, Aubenier. I said, no way. He said, yes, I'm Aubenier. I said, I haven't seen an ID. And he produces the ID. He said, how could you be an Aubenier? That's a rare name. I only can think of one. And he says, who? And I said, Valentine. He said, that's my daddy. 14 kids. Wow. Lucky man. He's a good man. He's a good man. God rest his soul. I extend my condolences to his family. He was nothing short of an amazing individual. Nothing short of an amazing individual, and a great loss to us as a country. But Madam President, we have been doing good with the measures that have been in place. We don't like it. I'm asthmatic. I hate to wear the mask. I can barely breathe. As we speak, I had to step out a while ago and use my pump for wearing the mask, for just sitting in here for an hour or two. My business, my law firm has gone from making this to making this. We are all impacted and affected. But I can tell you this much, Madam President. Though we have lost money, we have not lost life. I have enjoyed so much the time with my family. You know, as you would know, Madam Vice President, I spend most of my days as a litigation attorney. Some days I'm doing 25 to 40 cases per day. And now, if I do one case a week, it's a lot. But in the time off, I have found so much joys in the yard playing tag, roasting corn, roasting potato with these little girls. You know, I have enjoyed it, but I have lost, as with anybody in this country. So I understand. Senator Sweeting spoke of also being an entrepreneur. You know how hard it is. And for our people, it is harder. And every single one of us, and everyone under the sound of my voice, we understand, we empathize. We wish we could do more. The priority right now is to keep you safe, to save lives, save this economy. And I believe we can do that. I lend my support, Madam President. Whether a division be called, I will be the first and the loudest to shout that I support for that which has been working. And I will support that which has saved 1,999 lives out of every 2,000. What this government has been doing has been working. Madam President, I support the resolution.
The chair recognizes Senator Jamal Moss.
Yeah, 1, 2. Yeah. Madam President, before I start, I want to extend my sincere condolences to the family of the late Mr. Zelma Dean, pioneer in the educational field. She was a principal, also a director in the Ministry of Education, and also a very dear friend of mine, someone who I had my conversations with. She would always encourage me. It was truly a shock and a loss that her brother passed away. So I do want to send my sincerest condolences to her family, and may her soul rest in peace. Also, Madam President, I'd like to send condolences to two of my former colleagues at the Broadcasting Corporation of Bahamas. One, Mr. Trevor Mackey, the late Trevor Mackey, and also Mr. Valentino Lobinaire. And also, I can't forget it, and also Mrs. Rose Bradshaw. They all passed away. Nothing to do about one with the COVID, the other was natural causes. But they all were uniquely special to me in my growth in the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. And like I said, on behalf of the Zedner family, may they rest in peace. Madam President, once again, I want to say thank you very much for acknowledging me today as I rise to represent the youth of this nation and to speak on the extension of the emergency orders. Madam President, we are here again to debate why we should have this extension. I want to make it abundantly clear that as a proud Bahamian, that I support the extension, not because of politics, but because it's the sensible and moral thing to do during these times where lives are at risk. Madam President, the opposition, in its continuous, undisciplined, fruitless tirade, are condemning these emergency orders as though they are not working
not protecting nor saving the lives of many Bahamians. Instead, they would rather gamble and play politics with Bahamian lives. Look at the world today. Senator Sweden, look at the world today. The world is going through a recognized crisis and health pandemic. Governments around the world are taking measures, precautions, and extreme steps to ensure the safety of the nation and its people. But no. Senator Darwell and many others want to pretend as though everything is A-okay. The last time I was here, I quoted Captain Jack Sparrow from the movie Pirates of the Caribbean, where he said, "The problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude towards the problem." So again, why are you making this political? Why? I charge you based on your political motives. That it is because you want to continue to find ways to deflect that this minister-led administration is actually doing a good job in combating COVID and keeping Bahamians safe by following the recommendations of the health professionals. My fellow Bahamians, we have seen where countries such as Canada, England, Italy, our Caribbean neighbors, such as Barbados, and now the United States of America, all strap up their boots, put on their war gear called sense, and put in place measures to safeguard their country, their people, and their future. Not because they want to take away people's rights, not because they want to control you or reprogram you, but instead recognizing that lives were and are still at stake, and it is the right and moral thing to do. Madam President, again, like I said, look at Canada, England, Europe, America, Barbados, and the list goes on. Look at their numbers. Their numbers are not going down, but are instead skyrocketing. In Ontario, Canada, Canada's most populous province, issued a stay-at-home since January 2nd and extended another one to February 9th of 2021. It is reported by the health officials that fears are real and looming threat of their collapse of the province hospital system if COVID-19 cases do not come down. CNN report that Canada's second wave of COVID-19 is now more widespread and serious than the first, when a 7-day national average of 8,100 new cases per day, a pandemic high, according to the Public Health Agency of Canada. Ontario public health officials warned at a news conference that 1 in every 4 intensive care units in Ontario were already full, and that the hospital system was under threat of being overwhelmed. End quote. The Prime Minister of Canada, the Honorable Justin Trudeau, is warning Canadians to expect more travel restrictions in the near future. Trudeau said that the constantly evolving news of COVID-19 variants from other countries has spurred the government to look at improving the measures already implemented, and the announcement would come very soon. The Prime Minister also reiterated his previous statements of upcoming travel, telling Canadians to cancel any plans that they may have booked, and that while the number of cases linked to traveling abroad are low, one case is too many. Trudeau also said that bad choices of a few should not be allowed to put others at risk. End quote. I say to you, my fellow Bahamians, if Canada is doing all this to safeguard their country, their people, and their future, because lives are more important than politics. Then I say, just imagine if we did listen to the PLP, then I would say we would not just have a major health crisis, but we would have had more deaths, and the list goes on. Madam President, over in England, Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Boris Johnson, plunging England into the third national lockdown on January 5th to try curb the rapid spread of coronavirus as the country moved to COVID Alert Level 5. Alert Level 5, the red level, is the highest level and means that there is a significant risk that the healthcare services would become overwhelmed and strict social distancing rules are needed. The lockdown means people will only be able to leave their homes for limited reasons, with measures expected to stay in place until mid-February, the earliest. All of UK is now under the strict virus curbs, with Wales, Northern Ireland, and most of Scotland also in lockdown. According to information published by the BBC, the number of new day confirmed cases of COVID in the UK topped 60,000 for the first time. And it is thought 1 in 50 people in private households in England had the virus that week, rising to 1 in 30 in London. Figures from the Office of the National Statistics also suggested more than 1 million people in England had COVID between the 27th of December and January 2nd. And Madam President, my fellow Bahamians, I have a little chart here from the website of BBC where they show more patients in the hospital in England during the first wave. And you'll see where in April, the numbers went up. And then during, I would say, May, June, July, August, September, October, they had a drop in the curve. And then from October, they realized that they had a increase, steadily increase, then it went back down, and then it skyrocketed up again. So I just want to show the Bahamian people, this is what we are dealing with. This is what the world is dealing with. But this is what the Bahamas is trying to avoid in 2021. These countries I have just listed off so far, Canada and England, are following the footsteps of our little Bahama land. They're following our emergency orders, seeing that if it worked there, and it's producing positive dividends, imagine what it could do for us. Well, for them. We are being seen as world leaders, and I'll get to that a little later on. The regulations which allow the lockdown to be placed until the end of March are expected to pass the ease as Labour is set to support the motion, and we're talking about England. So as you can see, Parliament is willing to work together. They're putting away the politics for the safety and the well-being of their people. But again, I say to you, my fellow Bahamians, imagine if we did listen to the PLP. We would not just have a major health crisis, but we would have had more deaths, and the list goes on. Madam President, according to the news agencies out of Barbados, in light of the serious spike in COVID numbers and the discovery of the 3 new cases of the UK COVID-19 variant, Barbados is forced to go into a 15-day lockdown. Madam President, the opposition, along with a few personalities, all hail Barbados as a prime example of being a leader in the Caribbean when it came to measures being implemented to allow the people freedom. They even went as far as to say that our Prime Minister can take some classes and learn a thing or two from the Barbados Prime Minister. I remember that. I remember that. Now, look, Madam President. Now that the Barbados have realized that those measures have not worked fully in their best interests, they have now turned to the Bahamas model and are now following what we did to aggressively bring down their COVID-19 numbers. Prime Minister Mia Mottley announced on Tuesday that from February 3rd to February 17th, a 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. curfew will be in effect. She also announced that the essential business such as supermarkets, pharmacies, and gas stations will continue to operate during the lockdown. Supermarkets will only be open from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday during the lockdown, and they will be closed on Saturday and Sundays. Seems very familiar. Seems very familiar. All other businesses, including bars, restaurants, and gyms, will be closed during the lockdown. Banks are expected to be closed down for just 6 days between February 3rd to the 9th. Again, my fellow Bahamians. Barbados. We now can bring it back to our backyard in the Caribbean. Barbados. It's following our playbook and it's doing what they're doing to protect their country. And I say again to you, Madam President, and my fellow Bahamians, imagine if we did listen to the PLP. We would not just have a major health crisis, but we had more deaths, and the list goes on. Madam President, over in America, the number of deaths has reached 400,000 plus. 400,000 plus. That's more than our entire population. The virus is running wild. People are getting infected and people are dying. The newly elected president signed an executive order to help fight COVID-19. And he said, and in light of the new COVID variants that we are learning about, we are instituting now a new measure for individuals flying into the United States from other countries. The president said, in addition to wearing masks, everyone flying to the United States from another country will need to test before they depart and quarantine when they arrive in America, end quote. Coming back to home, the PLP voted against these emergency orders, which was designed to put measures in place, recommendations by the health professionals to help save lives. Instead, voting against these bills means that they are not concerned about the goal, and the goal is to saving lives. Madam President, the government along with the health professionals are working around the clock, ensuring that protocols that play a significant role in combating of the virus continue to be in place. Bahamians from all corners of the Bahamas, who were at one point not supportive of the emergency orders, have now admitted that they see a positive difference and are now in full support of the government efforts to keep us safe. Leonard Stiefel, a public relations executive, said, in crisis management, be quick with the facts and slow to blame. Let me say it again, Madam President. In crisis management, be quick with the facts and slow to blame. Former PLP cabinet ministers, like the former Attorney General, Alison Maynard Gibson, was quick to give the facts and slow to blame. When she commended the government in its step in handling the pandemic, she said, and I quote, our government took rapid steps to make sure our public system is not overwhelmed. Because of the government's quick response and measures that was implemented, like wearing your mask, social distance, sanitize your hands, and the list goes on, we have seen the success in their strategy in ensuring that the public system has been able to cope with the pandemic. That is what the former cabinet minister of the Progressive Liberal Party said. She also said that the way the government approached and handled it has been very successful. That is what she said. Yet, this Davis-led administration has done the opposite. They have been trying to obstruct, this Davis-led opposition administration has done the opposite. They have been trying to obstruct the emergency orders, which was designed to help save lives, all just for political gain. I say to you, Senator Davel run. I say to you, Senator Mitchell, stop playing politics during times like this. Another former cabinet minister said this in the name of Mr. Leslie Miller. You don't know your own history? He was a former cabinet minister. Leslie Miller he said in the news, praising the government for doing an excellent job. He said, and I quote, "The Prime Minister, who is a medical doctor before politics, is the right man for the job." That's what Leslie Miller, the Portgate, welcome back, the former cabinet minister said. If you listen to what the government has said and adhered to the scientists, health professionals, when it comes to our health care, I think the government has done as good as anyone could have done. He added, it is easy to criticize, not until you are in the driver's seat. And in these difficult times, you must simply obey the rules. End quote. My fellow Bahamians, these are two former PLP cabinet ministers who publicly came out and congratulated the government and health professionals on its efforts thus far on fighting the pandemic and saving lives. My fellow Bahamians, based on the opposition's continued foolish and ill-advised decisions, I believe the country would have been catching hell and Bahamians would have found themselves running to the high hills under their administration. I say to you, PLP senators, stop playing politics during times like this. And again, my fellow Bahamians, imagine if we did listen to the PLP. We would not just have a major health crisis, but we would have had more deaths, and the list goes on. And Madam President, now that Senator Davel is back, I didn't want to interrupt him while he was in flight, even though it wasn't really going nowhere. But, he said something, I had to write it down on my phone. It's like extended, title quicker. But, okay. But Madam President, while the senator was talking, I took down some notes. He seems, clearly he was contradicting himself. In one breath, he's saying, it's the Bahamian people who are to be commended and not the competent authority. Senator. Yeah. Like I said, in one breath, he's saying it's the Bahamian people who are to be commended and not the competent authority. Then he said in a report which indicated mask wearing, social distancing, and hand washing is effective, and commend the business owners for sticking to their guns when people were complaining. But if the government did not mandate these things, I think we all would agree that business owners would not have been able to enforce it and would have been hard to get people to comply. So at the end of the day, Senator Davel was contradicting himself to at least 60% of the speech.
He read the
Yeah. So
the thing is,
they were following the government and the health professionals protocols.
that does not have to be by the emergency order.
The bottom line is this, Senator Davel, you are contradicting yourself.
No.
60% free speech.
Madam President,
Madam President, what is the point of order, Madam President?
Point of order is, yes, the point of order is the member is misleading this House. And he's misleading this House based on the fact that the discussions that we had this morning as it relates to the Guardian report that the AG clarified by laying a document in this place clearly indicated that when it comes to masks, when it comes to hand washing, when it comes to social distancing, These things we do not need the emergency orders in order for us to implement these type of things. And because we do not need emergency orders, I was debating on the fact that the extension of the emergency orders were not necessary and we do not support. That's not a point of order. But it is a point.
Oh, no. That, what we have is a point of disagreement.
That's all it is.
Not necessarily a point of order. We have a point of disagreement. No, it's not.
Madam President, I want to thank you so much because I understand that, Senator Dowell being a former cabinet minister and a senior minister, a senior senator, he can't allow to be seeing a young senator putting him in his place and correcting him. So, so Madam President,
Okay.
we are being under the emergency orders.
Those, I think those words were.
And I take the, I do
you.
apologize,
Mr.
Madam
Order.
President.
Thank
I
you.
do apologize.
Okay.
Madam President, we got the point. Yeah. Oh, don't go there now. You ain't get me now. Don't go there now. Don't go there with me. Don't go there with me. Don't go there with me. I see you looking coming back.
Senator Moss.
I see you looking for a little help. Madam
Excuse
President.
me. Hello. Hello.
I have the floor.
Senator Darbo. Senator Darbo, Senator Davis, you've made your point.
Yeah.
Please allow the senator to continue.
Yeah. Madam President, thank you so much. Thank you. People in my are proud of me too. Madam President, we have been under these emergency orders for some months now. We wish we had our normal lives back where we can just go out when we feel like, come out when we feel like, not wearing the mask, and the list goes on. But the reality is this. There's a global health killer. There's a global health killer out there. And it doesn't know or see FNM or PLP. It doesn't see rich or poor. It doesn't see white or black. It doesn't see politics. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, made several attempts, publicly and privately, to reach out to the opposition leader, to put down the political swords and join hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, in attending high-level meetings with health professionals. My fellow Bahamians, if you recall, the opposition publicly said no thanks and came with all type of excuse as to why they couldn't attend, even to the point of saying it was short notice. And Madam President, if the record to be told that the meeting that one of those meetings said to the Honorable Michael Dowell, you want up the floor? Okay. Like I said, Madam President, Senator the Honorable Michael Dowell attended one of those meetings. And from my understanding is that because he couldn't have his way in those meetings, he parked up and left.
On a point of order. Madam President, it's obvious.
That's my understanding.
No,
That's my understanding. You can't kill me for my understanding.
No, well, let me correct you on a point of order. The member understanding is completely incorrect. And so wherever you got your understanding from, you need to go back and get it right. I need that like that because what happens in cabinet is private. So whoever gave you that information violated the cabinet code.
It's not a cabinet person.
It was in cabinet. Tell us who told you that?
That's the text. Just kidding. He told you. The garbage can.
Okay. No. 50 is script.
No, we're not doing it.
Sorry, dang it.
Madam President, Madam President, earlier today, Senator Kobe Davis spoke, and she called the former scientist and the boss with Dean who spoke before her. And I just want to say, I don't know whether Senator, I don't know when she said, you said, I don't know whether Senator Boswick Dean was impressed with how you laid out the opposition COVID plan or not, but I'm sure that Senator Dean may have heard where the opposition is. Well, Senator Dean did not publicly say that she thought that your plan was a good plan. It wasn't a good plan. So I just want to clarify. I just want to clarify that Senator Boswick Dean. I just want to clarify, Madam President. I just want to clarify for the people that Senator Boswick Dean did not publicly say that she endorsed the PLC plan or say it was a good plan. We just wanted to clarify that. And you know, Madam President, one thing I've learned in life is that when you're looking for knowledge, you find yourself at the feet of wisdom. And I said to say is that living forefather and former Governor General Sir Arthur Foulkes once said, when your country calls you to step up in times of challenges and crisis, we should immediately answer the call. I said that, Madam President, as to say is this. Those words of wisdom, I want to share that with the opposition. In my view, as a young Bahamian in the opposition, has squandered many times to bring the country together when it comes to this COVID-19 global pandemic. The opposition had many opportunities to sit with the government at cabinet, also with parliamentary meetings, and be there face to face. Well, not face to face, but one-on-one with the health professionals, getting their report, listening to what they are reporting, and also sharing, giving their response or their feedback, and see how best we can find middle ground. They didn't do that. They refused to come. They refused to show up, and they refused to do their parliament, their sworn duty, and that is to look out for the best interests of the Bahamian people. So I'll say it again, in the words of forefather Sir Arthur Foulkes, when your country calls you to step up in times of challenges and crisis, you should immediately answer the call. My fellow Bahamians, this is what, like I said, this was a time for opposition to show that they truly believe in Bahamians and they put Bahamians first. But instead, the opposition chose politics over patriotism. Madam President, the chairman of the PLP released a statement responding to an announcement of the government's emergency orders. Being extended, in my view, was nothing more than an opportunity for him to rant in his usual manner. Chairman Mitchell said that you are manipulating people's lives and also being able to manipulate, more importantly, the political process so that your opponents are all bottled up. Again, my fellow Bahamians, as I have said before, the opposition is more concerned with the protection of politics rather than the lives of Bahamians. And if they did, they wouldn't be thinking about politics during times like this. Madam President, the PLP chairman continued on with his usual rant, saying, a lockdown and curfew is not a plan. For example, third wave has affected countries across the world. What is the Bahamas doing to prepare for that? I say to him, a former two-time Minister of Foreign Affairs, a man who knows everything, a man who flew all over the world, especially the destinations like England, thank you, Canada, Barbados, and America. And as the former minister said, Dubai and Qatar. And he would know that the health professionals in those countries and right-thinking people know that to prevent a rapid spread, curfews or lockdowns and other protocols are the best plan to fight and slow down the spread. This line of thinking is most unfortunate and downright unacceptable. The chairman's thinking, the PLP chairman thinking is essentially a projection of what the PLP would do if they were in office. They have to recognize that the FNM will not play politics with the lives of being people. As I move around in different constituencies, Madam President, I had an opportunity to speak to Mrs. Rowe. And she said that this COVID-19 pandemic is not something to play politics with. Right now, everything is on the back burner as far as national priorities go. The FNM-led government is doing its level best to arrest and control. Once we are successful, then everything is fair game. Until then, it should behoove the PLP to get on board and put the national interests ahead of their nasty, narrow, partisan politics, end quote. Mrs. Rose said that. Mrs. Rose said that. I didn't want to say good afternoon, Mrs. Rose. I know you're watching. Madam President, on January 21st, 2021, the PLP issued a press statement looking to score political points with the headline saying, "Lockdown destroyed businesses. Government must plan ahead to avoid return to lockdowns." While the press release was on a local news page, the comments from Bahamians reveal that Bahamians are educated, they know what is happening around the world, and slam the opposition leadership team for playing politics with the lives of being people. When I read the comments, it reminded me of the saying. It reminded me of the saying the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the late Winston Churchill, once said, and I quote, "An appeaser is one who feeds a crocodile, hoping it will eat him at last." One person, one of the comments, Madam President, I'll just read a couple of the comments so they can understand what's going on. One person said, "Well, COVID destroyed Bahamians' businesses." Another said, "I am glad the PLP is not empowered during this time." Another said, if it was not for these lockdowns, we may have had thousands of deaths. What's more important, money or life? PLP is really desperate to get their hands on the cookie jar. They would have even used the COVID as an election ploy. Wow, so sad. Another said, COVID-19 impacted the world. All countries across the globe facing the same problems: unemployment, small businesses closing, hunger, kids out of school, and deaths of its citizens. They must really think Bahamian people are ignorant. This one made me laugh when they said, "Pray for Brave that he would see the light and follow it into retirement." Another said, "Yes, the COVID closed down the businesses, if not in what would have closed down our life." Pardon me? Another one said, "Stupid politics, suck my teeth." But if the restrictions were not in place, we would have had more funerals and medical systems would have crashed. These are what Bahamian people are saying. And oh, Madam President, I have to read this one. This is a former, I believe it's a former PLP, this person is a former PLP supporter now based on what they wrote underneath this news outlet. Madam President, Madam President, one thing of me, like I said, I'm a young man who's coming fast. And Madam President, I'll share these with my colleagues so they can see. Well, they might try to victimize. But you would see the different accounts under, it was under our newest farmers. But I sure I put that one out. Okay. Anyway, the person said, and this person, I'll show it to you, Minister. This person is a strong PLP supporter, well, I believe it's former now. They said, and they also followed me on Facebook, so they said, "Based on what was written, I am glad these guys are in opposition. Many more lives would have been lost to COVID if they were in charge. It's unfortunate and sad at the same time. Exploiting someone's loss of business is an attempt to cede power." That's what a known PLP supporter said under a credible news agency. And you know, Madam President, it got so bad that even the PLP's Facebook support page called their COVID task force nothing but clowns. This is what the PLPs are saying about you, Senator Davil. Well, the thing came out, but you could see this is VP. You know VP. They call it all clowns. It just shows you people are getting tired of the politics from you guys. And people, this is where we all know who the PLP page is, and they call the PLP COVID task force at work. So you know, but you know, like I said, Madam President, but also other individuals, you know, try to discourage, but that you understand, Madam President, I say to you, Madam President, I say to you, that reading the comments, to my fellow Bahamians, reading your comments, you have done my heart well. You have not just shown the PLP, but also other individuals who has an agenda to try to discredit the government, that you are not foolish and not naive, that you understand what your government is doing. You are showing them that you are appreciative, that you finally have a government who has put away the politics and putting lives first. You are showing them you understand that we are not a rich country like the big boys when it comes to how much is giving through the unemployment assistance, rental assistance, food assistance, and the list goes on. But you are thankful for a government for showing that they will stretch the dollar to feed and assist as many of our hurting brothers and sisters as humanly can. Madam President, this is what real governments do and will continue to do. I am happy to hear the Prime Minister announce yesterday, that the government is going to extend the assistance for individuals. So we must tip our hat to the government for that, for doing that, especially in these challenging times. So just want to say thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. You are a man who has a heart for the people. According to an international media, they reveal that out of the 27 countries that have largely tamed the COVID-19 pandemic, according to endcoronavirus.com, the Bahamas is number 3. That is commendable. Madam President, over the last 8 months, the Minister administration walked the lonely road of governing during these unprecedented times. The opposition constantly played politics and criticized for the measures we have in place. Persons in different walks of life criticize the government as well. But you, the Bahamian people, have been very supportive in making the Bahamas a successful story globally in this fight against COVID-19. You are following the protocols. You are listening to the health professionals. You understand that this is not about politics or personalities. Instead, this is about saving lives. We can replace everything as time goes, but we cannot replace lives of lost ones who died because of COVID-19. Madam President, as I end, while we may be improving our numbers, becoming more disciplined as a people, having the restriction being relaxed based on our progress, we must never forget that we are still at war. We are aiding each other like good citizens to the utmost by following the health protocols, even though the opposition has not been supportive and instead chose politics over the lives of the people. Despite that, we shall not fail. We shall go all the way. We shall win in the Southern Islands. We shall win in Central Islands. We shall even win in the Northern Bahamas. We shall win in the growing confidence knowing that the Bahamian lives is value more than a political prize. We will continue to defend our island nation by whatever the cost may be. We shall never surrender. And if parliamentarians from the lower house and here in the upper house fail to do their duties, and that is leave the politics out of this and instead support it just as we can do to save lives, then they have failed you and should not be given another opportunity to serve again. And in the first, in Chronicles chapter 1, in the first Chronicles chapter 28, verse 20, I say to you, my fellow Bahamians, be strong and courageous and do the work. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord God, my God, is with you. He will not fail you or forsake you until all the work for the service of the temple of the Lord is finished. But until God's good time, we will get through this. Thank you, Madam President.
As may, the chair recognizes Senator Anna Faye Knowles Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I rise to support the resolution to approve the continuance of the proclamation of emergency made on the 24th day of November 2020 until the 23rd day of March 2021. I propose to be extremely brief, Madam President, and in the words of a famous person that I knew long time ago, as a matter of fact, this is global, over the world, and I like to use this saying, prevention is better than cure. Before I get into the meat, Madam President, kindly permit me to briefly say, to give sympathy, condolences to a number of persons who departed this life to another realm. Most of them, not by COVID, one or two perhaps, but most of them died, I guess. Their time has expired. I speak of, first of all, MCM Peggy Phillips. I met Mrs. Phillips many, many moons ago in the Yamacraw area when she and a lady by the name of Knowles recruited me to assist them in the campaign of Dame Janet Bostwick. They took me under their wings, especially my friend, I always call her Peggy Phillips, and yes, that our relationship. I don't need to delve in that because Senator Bostwick, Lisa Bostwick, said who Peggy was, a no-nonsense woman. If Peggy was with you, she was with you. And she has fought a good fight. Just recently, I think it was last year, that Senator Dodson and I and probably others attended a park that was in the Yamacraw area that was named in her honor. And so I said condolences to her daughter, to all of her family, as a matter of fact. And I'm sure Peggy lived a life presenting to this world and pleasing to God. And so there's no doubt that she has gone on to the realms above, and may her soul rest in peace. I didn't know Sir Williams very well. I know of his service as a teacher. I learned about it. I know of his service, but I didn't know very much about him. But I knew many who have spoken before me spoke very highly of this man. Our own AG told us the type of man he was in this Bahamian society. And I wish to join the many choruses in here to say condolences to Sir William, who sat in the other place and who was instrumental in our finance. Mrs. Elma Dean was once my director of education. And in those days, I was not as pious as I am today. I was little radical, little young teacher, kind of little radical. Like Miss Knowles knew of us our days in the high school, at least part of it. And so I did something, and I was hauled before Zelma Dean, the director of education. And it happened that Miss Dean knew about me, heard about me. And so I thought my fate was going to be a little more harsh than I was. And that was the first time I think we were face to face. And she said, "Oh, this Tiana I heard about. You know, what they say about you, you don't look it." So I say, I don't think they probably tell a lie at me, Madam Dean. And so we hit it off on a good foot from there. And she spoke to me, and she was more comfortable with me. And she advised me on another thing. A lot of things that she advised me on, particularly in the educational field, and how sometimes things can happen in this way, and how you should go about doing this thing, and we need young teachers, and the list goes on and on. And I developed a good relationship with Miss Dean, and we kept that over the years. And then there was a space of time that we didn't hear from each other, and I think it was 2017 that we ran into each other again after many years. And it was a joy to talk with Mrs. Dean again. And today I send condolences to her family, and to tell you that she was a teacher extraordinaire, and she is now with the master teacher somewhere above the bright blue sky. Finally, Madam President, this is more closer to me. I want to give condolences to my husband, Reginald Knowles, and his family, the Knowles family of Roxham, Luttrell, and the Bain family. Both his brother, Graham Knowles, and his uncle, William Bain, died. They both live in Wrexham. I heard that the senator opposite, my good island senator, Senator Clay Sweden, spoke about them. Uncle Will, as he was affectionately called, I think he's about 89 years plus to me. Actually, Uncle Will's father came from Crooked Island, ran into Luttrell, and history tells us that he had 2 children, my husband's mother and Uncle Will. And he's the last, we call them patriarch in that generation. Graham, on the other hand, Graham Knowles, came from a large Knowles family, and he has now gone on to the nearer presence of the Lord. I wish to convey my sympathy, which I am a part of the family, to the Bain and the Knowles family, and pray that they have comfort in such a time as this. And so many good things have been spoken about Miss Valentino. I never knew him until I came to this honorable place, and he's always been a gentleman and very respectful and kind to me. He knew my son well as well, and so On behalf of myself and my family, we offer sympathy to his family. May they all souls rest in peace. And now to my brief remark, Madam President, I am here to give the benediction. Not the one that says, now unto him that is able to, whatever that is. I am here to say that all of the good senators on either side have spoken, and like Senator Enfield says, I think all senators on either side really wants the good and the best for this pandemic. All of us from time to time, I have noticed, I heard that we encourage each other to wear a mask, stay a distance. You've said it in mere words. Distance, sanitize your hand, and do the best you can to be safe rather than to be sorry. Our own Senator Darvel on the other side, he, I could say, was a victim of the COVID. And he had a first-hand experience with COVID-19. And I've spoken with him, and he has shared a number of things with me concerning that. And so I think that all of us genuinely has wants COVID to be gone, the quicker. It's now more than 10 months, and like Senator Quay said, I think it was 48 more days, then it'll be near to an end. All of us have taken a hit from this pandemic. And I believe our desire is for it to get over it. I don't sometimes agree with some of the things that is being said about the competent authority, not the incompetent authority, the competent authority. As a matter of fact, I thank God, like senators before me have said, that we have the doctor, the good doctor, as part of that competent authority for such a time as this. And I think that the emergencies and the other thing, the other lockdowns, has been somewhat of a burden to some of us, because some of us don't. Bahamians in the whole do not like to be restricted in their houses and etc. I myself made use of my time during the lockdown and the pandemic. Yesterday I was privileged to pick 2 bowls of peas, pigeon peas, from out of my yard that I made myself very active during that. I had vegetables, something I planted. Other persons would not bear to that, and some would. But that was an opportunity, like in Senator Henfield's case, it was an opportunity for him to bond with his family, because he has a job that takes him away from his family at most time. And so I encourage Bahamian everywhere to find something positive to do when these things come upon us. And I want to pause to congratulate the Bahamian people for most part, if not all, adhering to the rules and regulations that was placed down. I think they deserve a handsome round of applause, because what Bahamian did, and of course they did it for themselves, notwithstanding. But sometimes we have to pause to thank persons for being obedient to the call. And I want to thank Bahamian openly from this forum I want to thank the Christian Council, the religious persons, head of the religious denomination in this. I start with my own Bishop Lord Leishberg, who every time newsletters are out on national radio about, he asks person to obey the rules. Wear your mask, sanitize your hands, stay your distance. And then I was privy to speak with the Christian Council President, Bishop Delton Fernanda. I praise him for what he do. And then these are persons, my own dear cousin, Bishop Walter Henschel, and all those persons, all those men and women of God who have come together and support the work of the government as it relates to bringing Bahamians together and saying, look, let us collectively and individually work together to help eradicate COVID by this pandemic by whatever we do. And so I thank them. Madam President, the health, how could you yourself is one of the main health caregiver in this Bahamas. How can I dare forget those persons on the front line? The nurses, the doctors, and all other healthcare who, like I said, collectively come together and everybody got together for the betterment of our society. And there's a portion in the Bible that says, together we stand and divided we fall. This is not, I think one of the senators already alluded to this. This is not political. I don't want to take it down in a political way. I want to look at it globally. Together we stand on this, divided we'll fall on it. And like Senator Dotson, I think, says, COVID has no friend, There's no friend in COVID. That's not your friend. It attacks the baby. Of course, they does well. The younger they are, they does well. At my age, I got to be extremely careful and do what I know is the right thing to do. Follow the procedures, and I admonish all of us in this place and outside, especially, to continue to do what you do. There is no denial that the numbers are down. And from my point of advantage, I think the number is down because of what has been put in place to eradicate this pandemic. I squirm to know what it would be like if everyone would have just go willy-nilly and do as they want to do during these times from March of last year to this very moment. As we can see, the numbers are dwindling. The numbers are really down. There was a time when I had the feelings that, look, this is not gonna stop now. This is not gonna be down. It's going up. But I can see now every day the numbers are down. I think the last I heard of it is that the average number is 9 per day. And it's still going on. So I want to thank the Bahamian people for being obedient during this time. There is a degree of certainty in this Bahamas now. Most Bahamians are beginning to feel that this is, it's going down. We must not let our guard down, Madam President. We must never, ever let our guard down. We must do what we are asked to do. We must follow all the protocols and make it necessary. We have seen what is happening in the region, and we have seen what is happening in the wider world. And so, like everyone, we must not slack our rein we must continue to do what we should do. And the good thing, finally, the good thing that I heard in a long time is that the vaccine is on the horizon. As a matter of fact, they said that according to the World Health Organization, the vaccine should soon be in the Bahamas. I got a call from a number of family islanders who says, what you think about the vaccine? Would you take it? And senators, I gave them a scenario that happens to me while I was in the island. In those days, I didn't know what vaccine was like. But you remember those vaccines that you took in your left or your right arm, and some of them turn out to be those ugly looking things on the top of your shoulder. I gave them the scenario. I said I didn't know what it was. But I have never heard anyone died from it. I'm not saying that they didn't. I said I have not heard that anyone died from those vaccines in those days. And they were good preventative measure because we were able to curb the measles, the chicken pox, and the likes. And so I think the vaccine is good. So I end up by just painting that scenario to them. And I said to them, well, listen, if it comes, I would be on the line. If not the first on the line, I will be on the line to take it. I am not afraid of the vaccine if it's because it was meant to prevent this pandemic. And so I encourage Bahamians everywhere, not only in the family islands, but everywhere, to adhere to all the protocols and let us do the best that we can. I personally, this is my personal view, I think that COVID is going to be with us for a long time. I remember the days when HIV and AIDS first came out, it was a taboo. Everyone was afraid, just like we're afraid now. And I think the difference there, though, was that it was not global like how this COVID-19 is. But this too shall pass, like Senator says. And I hope to God that it passes as soon as it could. As long as we do what we should do, the sanitizing, the mask, keeping your distance, I think it will have a great effect on the Bahamas, and we'll have least worries when it comes to the amount of persons that will be affected. And so on that note, Madam President, I am happy to support this extension, and I pray God that all will go well for Bahama land. Thank you. Ed gone. That's yours?
The great leap forward. It's not what it is, eh? Very soon. Oh.
I didn't pronounce the benediction.
First of all, Madam President, I want to offer congratulations to the President of the United States, Joe Biden, who was sworn in on the 20th of January, 2021, as the new President of the United States. And that is the departure point for my opening statement on this occasion. No surprise, we're not supporting this. Nothing you said here convinced us that it should be supported, so we voted against it. Say? I listened very carefully. You almost had me. You were, almost as good as the minister here, who I've told repeatedly is the best spokesman for their side. He makes a convincing case, but I don't believe him. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You carry on regardless. Carry on. Right. But I do want to say, congratulations, because I think in relation to what is happening in the world with regard to this pandemic, it's been no secret that until this change of administration, our view from this side was that the opportunity to bring this matter under control was lost in significant measure because of the lack of United States leadership in the fight against this disease. I think people don't really appreciate and understand the extent to which the United States dominates world fora, and what actually happens in the world. And when there's a default by United States leadership, things simply fall apart. This is for good or ill, this is the era of the Pax Americana, which is constructed after the Second World War. And all of these multilateral institutions depend on their leadership for things to be organized. So when the United States decided to step away from the World Health Organization, there is no other supervening power in the world that's able to concentrate the effort to try and bring this under control. So I think the region and our country is grateful for the fact that a decision has been made, that someone now sits in the seat that appreciates that it was an error to deconstruct what transpired post the Second World War and to try and put those institutions back together so that we can together get on top of this. I think that this presents a valuable opportunity. Interesting, just a few notes in response to what was said by the other side. Senator Moss was saying that he did not get here or he's not engaged in his arguments because of politics. And I thought of these words in my favorite movie where it says, I've never heard a corpse complain about how it got so cold. The fact is, however you got here, the lie in the winter. Yeah, I've never heard a corpse complain about how it got so cold. No, sorry, you did say that. You said, I'm not saying this because of politics. I'm saying this. Yes, that's what you said. I thought I took the note correctly. The fact is, however you got here, your arguments are putting hell on us, if I can use that word. So it doesn't matter how you got here. You ended up with the same result. So I always say to you, sir, with due respect, that politics is an integral part of this exercise. And I don't know how you could argue not to put politics in it. But the public policy evolves all the same, which brings us to the question of, I think one of the senators said that, I think may have been Senator Moss again, that when he goes around, people come up to him and say, what's wrong with this PLP? Why are they doing this and why are they doing that? Well, I run into some people who kept saying, what y'all gonna do about this man? What y'all gonna do about this man? And y'all, I talk about Brave. I talk about Brave. Huh? I talk about Brave. They keep asking me, what's your, huh? Yeah. I mean, the same man who got up and say, I don't listen to Brave, that one. I don't listen to Brave. And then you come here and say all these blandishments. You never heard that out of my mouth. You never heard that out of my mouth. Never heard that out of my mouth. Please. Never. Anyway, the same one who said, who? No, you trying to deflect me now. We talking about your man. The one who they asked me, what you can do about him? This man, huh? Like he gets up, I see the headline this morning. All this sensible stuff that it was exchanged in the House of Assembly, they get up talking about the man say, PLP wants Bahamians to die. How you get to that? You know? So Sands, Dr. Sands, the good Dr. Sands, the former chief health advisor to the prime minister, the competent authority in quotes, got up and said the same thing. Cut it out. Stop the emergency orders. It ain't working. You don't need the test. So does Dr. Sands want Bahamians to die? Does the prime minister believe Dr. Sands wants Bahamians to die? I mean, how ludicrous. How ludicrous. And I thought that what some of our senators said on behalf of it, I mean, you know, this business about BJ Nottage was my friend and I knew what would BJ do? That is so low. I mean, why would you bring a dead man into this? Why? Why? Can't defend himself, can't say anything, and to turn it into something to make it political. You know? And fine, all I say is this. There was a debate which took place in the States, Madam Vice President, once, and you know, someone said, "Oh, John Kennedy wouldn't have done that." And what did the man say? Look, you know, I knew John Kennedy. You know, John Kennedy was my friend. You know, I know John Kennedy, and that's what I say to the Prime Minister. I knew BJ. BJ was my friend, and you, Dr. Minister, are no BJ Nottage. Please, don't compare yourself to that. No, please, don't go there. Don't go there. The issue is, we have a divide on the question of how do you strike the balance, which is where I was with you. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. Sorry, Senator. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Yes, where I was with you. And that is, where do you strike the balance? Both arguing from different sides. Where do you strike the balance between livelihood and life? But it's not a question of patriotism or whether I want Bahamians to die. I mean, how ludicrous. You know? So the balance, we say, is tipped too much on the other side, where rights are being truncated, one of which the senator spoke about, people's civil rights to litigate and debts and all the rest of it. You may have been absent from the chamber when he raised the question of magistrates' courts' work and the fact that civil litigation hasn't taken place in 9 months. He made the case for it. So it's been tipped too much in the balance. And it's gotten to the point, Honorable Vice President.
But Senator, the competent authority does not make orders that affect the judiciary. All of the orders that affect the functioning of our courts are made by the Chief Justice pursuant to his own powers, and he issues his own practice notes and directions. The competent authority does not issue any order that in any way seeks to mandate or order anything to be done or not to be done by the judiciary, which is a separate arm of government. Just to make that clear, please.
Unfortunately, and I can't speak for the good senator, unfortunately, it is a distinction without a difference, because the end result is what it is. That's what the end result is, what it is. And so people's rights have been displaced. And this is why I took issue at the time with this business of whether our rights have been suspended. I went back and looked at Article 29, and it lists 21 to 26. You can impose measures which amount to suspension of my rights. I can't move around. I can't assemble. Some people want to have cookouts, south-outs. They can't do it because they've got to go ask somebody to do it. I mean, so those things don't exist. And the point I was getting to before you intervened is that it's become like the times in the apartheid state where you had petty apartheid. And so right now, every morning in Grand Bahama, you've got 10 roadblocks all over the place, police officers with assault weapons checking for, I don't know what they're checking for, that they need assault weapons for.
They're usually checking based upon information for either firearms or dangerous drugs. That is their legal remit.
That is what they say. That is what they say. But as Telford Georges said in his judgment, you can't suspect every car of firearms and drugs. It has to be a reasonable suspicion. You can't stop everybody saying, where are your firearms and drugs? That's ludicrous. That's ludicrous. So what they're doing is collecting revenue for the government.
No, just as
that's what they do.
No, sir. Absolutely not.
I saw
And
a
I will
police
say-
officer, sir.
And I will say, please,
post-
one second, please. And I believe that the record will show that the numbers of firearms and illegal firearms and illegally held ammunition that has been apprehended by the police as a result of what they're doing has increased significantly in Grand Bahama.
And what I'm saying is that no one in Grand Bahama or this island believes it. Again, there's a question of beliefs. You know, you are harassing people every morning. They're trying to get to work. You're trying to get blood out of stone. One police officer, 300, was boasting in the newspaper. I think Jasper Ward wrote it. 395,000. Since we wrote $395,000 worth of fines and tickets. They tell me one day in one of the magistrates' courts up in Grand Bahama, $10,000 in traffic violation fines collected in one day. And they're boasting about this in an island where no one has any money.
Madam President, if I may say, let me say affirmatively that there is no policy of this Free National Movement government to utilize any of the emergency orders for the purpose of revenue enhancement. There's no policy. Now, if there are local concerns based upon the information that the Royal Bahamas Police Force would have received in respect of any particular locality, and they take their steps, that is a matter of the police. But there's no policy by the central government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to seek to use emergency powers orders as a revenue source. I want to make that very clear, sir. Thank you.
That's fine. Again, my answer is it's a distinction without a difference because no one for 5 seconds accepts that it's the police on their own that are out there every morning writing traffic tickets. The people who, that's fine. That's fine. I'm saying you don't have to listen to me, you know. You don't have to take it. Don't have to listen to me. All I'm saying is the political responsibility for it does not lie on the police. Certainly not. People are saying to themselves, it is the government that is doing this to us.
And let me say, sir, those days are long over in the Bahamas. Okay? This government does not purport to give operational instructions to the police. Okay? They have a fully qualified senior management team, fully qualified commissioner, and they have fully qualified island officers in command. And any suggestion that the political directorate is exercising operational control on the police is an absolute untruth.
Well, I didn't make any such suggestion. I'm saying that notwithstanding your explanation, I accept your explanation, and you don't have to listen to what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that no one for 5 seconds believes that this is just operational, as you say. The problem is when you harass citizens, the persons who bear the responsibility for the harassment, at least the ire of the citizen, is not the police. Maybe in the short term, but the politicians.
So what do you?
Because they say nothing.
So you're suggesting then, sir, and this is a genuine question. Are you suggesting either that the members of Parliament, broadly speaking, which would include that member of Parliament and the other members of Parliament, not being only members of the House of Assembly, because Parliament is both houses, so that the parliamentary team in Grand Bahama is urging the police to oppress and hit the citizens with taxes in a way that is causing widespread frustration and anger on the streets in Freeport, and that they are complicit in that?
No, I'm not saying complicit.
Okay, so that's the first question.
Complicit.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm not saying complicit.
Good.
But they say nothing.
I'm glad to hear that concession.
They say nothing.
Okay. I think I'd leave that to the minister to answer on that issue.
No, thank you very much, Madam President. I want to say on behalf of the members of Parliament in Grand Bahama who have heard the same complaints that are being raised, and I want to completely confirm what the Attorney General has indicated, that has not come from the political directorate. It has not come from any member of parliament or any minister that resides in Grand Bahama, and or New Providence. And I understand the point that you are making. So based on the point that you are making, I am confirming that to the public that has not come. So you could allay your fears, because coming from the Minister for Grand Bahama and the members of Parliament from Grand Bahama, we are saying now to the public, if that is a concern, that has not come from the political directorate. It should not come from the political directorate.
So you're like Shaggy, it ain't me. It ain't me. That's fine. All I say is you don't have to listen to me, but the political weight of it will be borne by you. That's all I'm saying, notwithstanding your explanation. So, now, the other fascinating aspect of this was the praise which was given to yourselves about the manner in which matters are handled. And there was a great deal of levity being thrown at the Progressive Liberal Party, saying that the Progressive Liberal Party likes to talk about what they're going to do, but the F&M does what they're doing, and perhaps their their public relations of the Free National Movement is bad because they don't actually, tell the public what they're doing. I have another tack on this, and I say it all the time. The Free National Movement is marvelous at this act, or this set of actions. Create a crisis where there is none. Break something where it isn't, you don't need to fix it. You break it, and then you fix it, and then you say, didn't we do a good job? Now, you're an expert at that. You come to the office. No. I'm just saying that's what you're accusing us of. So I'm answering your point, that particular point. No, I'm not saying anything other than you made an accusation against the Progressive Liberal Party that we like to talk, but the F&M does, right? And all I'm saying is I don't agree with you. All I'm saying is the masters of creating a crisis where there is none, then fixing the crisis you created, and then saying, what a good job you done. What a good job you done. You raised it, you made, so not you, no, your side made the accusation. Your side made the accusation. Your side made the accusation. So I'm just answering the point. I mean, I could give you case in point if you wish. Right. And then, again, the petty nuisances, the cost of traveling up and down this country now. This ludicrous business of, the $200 test this way, that way, people call, and they're saying, again, so one of the religious leaders in Grand Bahama told me cost him the round trip to Grand Bahama, Nassau now is $618 to make a trip, round trip, because of these, they didn't call it suspension, these restrictions that are now imposed. On the nurses this morning, long text to us this morning. They owed the overtime. They've been promised for 9 months. It's not paid. They're going to be civil rights demonstrations to get their money. This is the current reality. This is the current reality. This is the current reality. And then, no, that's fine. That's fine. I suppose you would say the poor are always with us, but I'm saying that this...
No, I'm not saying that, sir. I'm not saying that the poor are always with us.
You asking me to...
Please.
Oh, right.
Well, since you put some words in my mouth, I have to respond. I made no such comment about the poor being always with us. The point I made is that the world's largest economies are having problems in terms of their own economies and their own ability to engage in government spending. Only the United States could print money from thin air. And even the United States has millions and millions of persons working who are being underpaid because their states can't pay them what they owe them. Okay? Millions and millions of persons who are on food lines, who are on unemployment, and all that they could give them, the greatest economy in the world, passing a $1.7 trillion aid is $600 check each. But this government is paying people every month, thousands of Bahamians who are unemployed every month. And the great American United States could only give them one $600 check. $600 check. Senator, with all respect, the only point I'm making is this. You are judging the Bahamas by a standard impossible to be met by any country, even America.
Judging anything. All I'm doing all I'm doing is saying the facts. These are the facts. The facts are people have no food. They're writing the tickets. This is not America. This is the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. That's what I'm concerned. That's what I'm concerned about right now. Now, the other thing I find interesting about the defense of the Free National Movement is I read the Prime Minister's speech in extenso last evening, and the talk about this second wave that took place in the summertime, as if the Prime Minister had nothing whatsoever to do with it. But we all know that on the 1st of July, the rules changed. The rules changed on the 1st of July, which allowed the country to open up. People go to Miami for 72 hours, no tests to come back. And that followed the second wave. And then there was, I've made no such suggestion. Well, I'm just, I'm just answering the points that you raised in your defense. My job is to poke holes in your defense. If you have an answer to it, fine. You may have an answer to it. But I'm saying you can't pretend you had nothing to do with it. That's the only point I'm making at this point. You can't pretend you had nothing to do with it.
No, what we have to do is we are the government.
No. That's right. That's right.
That's what we have to do.
Right. So, in summation.
Far better than every other government on the
yes, I wish though. No, I wish that you would be able to provide some food for people who've been kicked off social services. I saw the social service minister this morning. I'd explained to him that there are too many anecdotal cases of people who say, I've been kicked off social services. And yes, right, it's a story. It is anecdotal evidence. No, as opposed to empirical evidence. This is not date. I'm saying people walk up to you, all of us, and say, I've been kicked off social services. Right. And I can't seem to get it resolved. He has an idea of why that's taking place, and perhaps he can fix the problem. All I'm saying is, at this point, you're renewing these emergency orders. This is a problem which must be fixed. So, yes, but we are in the current reality. So, all I say is, carry on smartly. You don't have to listen to us. You can pass these orders, extend them to thy kingdom come. The Progressive Liberal Party does not support them, does not see a need for the truncating of rights, of the civil rights of our people in this present matter. And also I'm sorry? What concession? No, I've made no such concession. No matter how, arose by any other name, my friend. It's still the suspension of a right, the civil liberties of our people. And so, for those reasons, we will not be supporting this. And I wish also, just got a note. Again, this thing of the police officers on the streets writing tickets for people. There was, during the summertime, I think on the 28th of June, when the last orders died by reason of an error. There was a provision in the previous order which said that the licensing functions were suspended until 60 days after the expiry of the order. Many people are still under the misapprehension that those provisions were renewed. And I've had to do on half a dozen times to tell people they're not renewed, and that is the basis upon which the police are now writing tickets at the end of each month for people who have not licensed their cars. Now, all I say is perhaps you need to clear that up, but it's things like that that are troubling the population, including people getting thrown out of their houses because of the mortgages being in default. You heard the story of Senator Sweeting today going into the bank and people who have never missed a payment because they've not been working for 9 months, have now missed a payment, are about to lose their homes. The government can resolve that problem, as can the government resolve the problem of, I think to myself, these poor, I just walked down Bay Street, shops empty. I mean, you know, it is what it is. But the people who work in the straw market, I think to myself, how do these straw vendors make it 9 months later? No business. The place is shut tight. And that's the issue right now that's choking you. As the Jamaicans like to say, I beg you to listen to me. The economy is in the tank. People are suffering. And there's soon going to be, if we push this too far, an illogic which sets in, which we do not want to happen in the country. Again, I say, I never heard a corpse complain about how it got so cold. Thank you, Madam President. I think that covers most of what I said. Okay, thank you much. Right.
I note your favorite movie being about the dysfunctional King Henry II and his dysfunctional 3 children who are constantly warring with each other. That reminds me of the PLP. So I'm happy to see that's the senator's favorite movie. But I think I need to start and wrap up on where you finish, Senator Mitchell, because this is a critically important point. Let me first of all commend all senators on the quality of their contributions, and I'll say to the leader opposite that yes, the economy is shut down, but not because the government of the Bahamas has shut it down. The economy is shut down because, first of all, the Center for Disease Control will not allow and has continually pushed back any date on which they would permit any cruise ships to leave the continental United States with a shipload of passengers, period. The entire cruise ship industry, which is the breadbasket of Bay Street and downtown Freeport, is dead in the water. The investments predicated upon a thriving cruise industry, both in Freeport and in other islands in the Bahamas in terms of the redevelopments, are all on pause until such time as the cruise ship industry is able to get back into business and rebuild its inventory and stock and its profits. None of this is possible until the CDC allows them to do so. That is entirely outside of the control of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Way back in June of this year, July, it came up to November. November was the beginning of the period where the government indicated that we were irreversibly committed to the opening of the Bahamian economy. We indicated at that time that there would not be any further mass lockdowns, barring an emergency. We encourage hotels to commence their reopening protocols and procedures. in consultation with the Ministry of Health. Hotels have now started to come on stream. And what has happened? The incoming administration, led by President Biden, has immediately done something. Now, I do not criticize him for it because I do believe that when you got a bad sickness and you got a harsh medicine, but the harsh medicine could work to cure the sickness, take the medicine. Take the medicine. So I'm prepared, more than prepared, to applaud the short-term, temporary closure measures and travel restrictions that the United States is now imposing. But that has a negative impact on the increases that we had hoped to see in our tourist numbers. But it's a short-term fix, and if it fixes the problem, coupled with vaccination, I read an analysis in CNA today, also a certain amount of herd immunity being developed, since they estimate that the former administration has done successfully what the Swedes haven't done, and that as many as 100 million Americans have some form of antibody resistance. It was on a CNN paper today, based on, and that this was an approach towards herd immunity, which, coupled with the vaccinations, is slowly putting the United States in a position where they are now seeing hospitalizations drop. They're seeing the rates of infection drop. It's only just beginning. It may well only be a phase, because we know that they've also now identified also not just the UK variant, but as of today, they've confirmed the South African variant in the United States. So with the highly contagious aspect, there may, the apparent progress may not work. The point being, though, that it is irresponsible for members to point to the problem here with the economy and say, oh, it's the government's fault, when the record is clear that the things that are preventing the takeoff and relaunch of the Bahamian economy, which, as we know, is 70% dependent on tourism, is the actions of our nearest neighbor and the source of 80% plus of our tourists. So we could open every hotel door, we could drop prices to rock bottom, but if the restrictions being imposed on international and travel across state lines by the federal government in the United States prove to be a disincentive to travel abroad, we will feel it. We will feel it. There's nothing that the government can do about that. We have done what we could do, as was announced yesterday in the other place, and we have secured the CDC agreeing to remove the Bahamas from level 4 threat and to upgrade our status to level 3, thereby signaling that the Bahamas is a safe place to come to. If you can get there in a way that makes sense for you and your family in terms of tourists. So the reality is, yes, we look outside the door, we see Bay Street looking like a ghost town. Yes, we do. But that is not because of anything the government of the Bahamas either does or doesn't do. That has to do with the laws either preventing or greatly inhibiting travel, the travel on which we depend to survive. So it is really irresponsible for the opposition to sit around and seek to try to tie the economic malaise caused by external factors, the first external thing being this horrendous virus, the second being the reactions of a responsible government to it. And to tie that to the FNM as if this is the FNM's plan. No. My friend across the way, the other side, the senator, speaks about the hungry. And my response is, but even a country as wealthy as the United States of America, which can print money without any record, don't worry, someone is going to put some dollars to back those treasury bonds. They now on their third $1.6 trillion stimulus. The third one now, and they want a fourth one. Okay, that's the kind of economic power they could disparate it. And even today, after three $1.56 billion plus stimulus packages, there are food lines stretching for miles. There are people who've been cast out of their homes living on the streets throughout the length and breadth of the United States. The kind of social horror you see there, you don't see here in the Bahamas. And the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is a country that is judged by the rating agency. They don't even bother to rate the United States. They don't even put out a rating on the United States. Central government. But little countries like the Bahamas, yes. But even the IMF, in their latest Article 4 consultation and the report, really, in nice the politesse and political speak of these agencies, they commended the government. They were commending the Bahamas government. Yes, they say, yes, we know you're going and you're forward. You're up to 98% of GDP, but you did the right thing. You saved lives. You protected your country. You saved your people. Can you save everybody? No, you can't. Can you wipe every tear from every eye like the PLP falsely promised 1,000 times? Wipe every tear from every eye? No. No government is omniscient to know every ill. What? Yeah. Over the time? Yes. Over the course of this pandemic, this Bahamas government, see, we can't print money enough. We got to borrow it. Okay? We have to borrow it. And there are limits, but within those limits, we have done wonderful things for the Bahamian people. Every ministry had their budget. No, I'm not saying what a good boy am I. You know what I'm saying? I'm giving you the facts, and I'm giving the facts as to how a responsible government that is held to a higher standard by the international rating agencies and the global community, that is relentlessly beaten with a switch. If you go a few percentage over your budgetary allocations, they want to downgrade you. And this time they commended the Bahamas government. Now I want to give the facts to colleagues here, because we hear all of this conflation. The Progressive Liberal Party really has nothing sensible to say about this, So what do? They want to say, oh, you have all this suffering. What does the order have to do with that? What do the orders have to do with that? Let me tell you, no, don't, please. This government has bent over backwards to assist the poor, to help people who lost their jobs, their wherewithal, who were suffering. $17.2 million was spent on food relief alone during the pandemic period. To help 100, no. I appreciate that. I come with that. We helped 100,000 people. No, I understand that, Senator, that there may be an individual and no, indeed, and when the senator is, let me say, he may know one person, he may know two people, he may know 5 people, someone may have stopped him downstairs. If you get their name, you get their phone contact, maybe you get their address, and you gave it to the responsible ministers, help would be given to those persons. We have spent, I said, the $17 million fed 100,000 Bahamians since March of last year. 100,000. That is 1/4 of our population. Let's start there. And we will, if the one comes forward, they will be fed. They will be assisted. Okay? We have spent $45.5 $45.5 million. Not on unemployment extension that you were lawfully entitled to, workers were upon their engagement, but on the support from the time when their engagement would have stopped. An additional $45.5 million has been spent in economic support to displaced workers. Hundreds of thousands of Bahamians are benefiting from that. Yes, they are the anecdotal, this one, that one, the other one. Give us the names. Let us make the anecdote into a reality. Give us a name, give us their phone number, give us, if they have a cell phone or a bubbler, if they don't have that, give us their street address, right? We will ensure all of us will do so. What I'm trying to say, no, I'm not interested in your voters. Chanel will deal with you on that, and your voters will. You're not, eh? Oh, you're not running. Okay, you're not running for Foxville. Okay. So Foxville running for you then. Okay. Colleague, the point I'm trying, it's very important to me. The point that the Bahamian people should understand is this. For every person that the senator may say he knows of this person, that person, I go many places, and I go and I run into people all the time myself. I'm waiting for you all to, I don't want to have to shout over everybody. Just like you, I go around this society, and I went into a store just to buy some knick-knack or whatever, and a lady came up to me. She said, I have to say thank you to you and to the FNM government. She said, I was laid off from my job from the hotel for 8-9 months now. And I need to do it. You didn't have to do it. This is what the lady said to me. You did not have to do it, but you did it. And God bless the Prime Minister. God bless the Prime Minister. Yes. In addition to all of the millions spent on food support, 15.5, on continuing unemployment benefits beyond the period when they lawfully would have expired, 45.5. What is that? That's 40, 50, 60, 65, 70. The government also spent $47.3 million on small business support, grants, and other forms of economic support for the small and emerging business sector. So that's 70. That's 100. That is 100 and 117.3. 110? No, 107. Yeah. So that is $117 million. Yeah. Yes. So the point being, Madam President, that I hear the members opposite raising, this little issue about Johnny, that about Mary, and tying it into the orders, and then jumping around and saying, oh, don't do the orders because you are inflicting all this harm. But I say, hold on a second. We've just cataloged over $100 million of direct financial support to the Bahamian people, over and above what was lawfully required. Food support, unemployment payment support, small business development support. And you know something else? Not a single member of the more than 24,000 public servants, not one, lost their job. Not one suffered any reduction in their salary. No salary was cut. Not a soul. More than 24,000 Bahamians, counting contract workers, is probably closer to 26 or 27,000. And not one lost a penny of their jobs when most of them were working from home. Because, there's only a limit to what you could do working from home. But not a nickel was taken. How many hundreds of millions of dollars is that over the last 9 months, 10 months? And so, Madam President, the boogeyman of all this economic suffering that the PLP wishes to point to is countermanded by the reality that the government responsibly has pumped more than $100 million into the economy. We didn't have to do, but we did it because we love our people. We wanted no one to suffer. We wanted every tear to be wiped from every eye by the joyful people. Like, we don't have to wipe the tear from their eye. Let them wipe the tear from their own eye. There are scores of thousands who receive the benefits of that because the Bahamian government, the government of this country, of Dr. Hubert Minnis, love the people, wants to protect the people, has done everything financially possible to support the people and to limit, to the extent possible, any suffering, any human suffering. But you look at all the advanced countries and see the deluge of poverty and suffering, of hunger in countries like the United States. Now, what is the Bahamian government strategy? We have a strategy to get out of this. Our strategy is very simple. We are opening the economy. We are not locking down. We are not going to be imposing undue restrictions. And I thank the member opposite for his concession, where he said the truncations. Here, truncation is a good word. I can't read that far. You need to bring closer. Yeah. No. Wait. Y'all could talk all y'all want, but now I can't answer you. I'm afraid I have to give an answer. Leave no lie unchallenged. Now, you said that the FNM created a crisis where there's none to praise ourselves for fixing it. So we created COVID. Oh, okay. We didn't create COVID, but we have dealt with it. We have dealt with it in a world-class manner that is being recognized around the world. We are on par with New Zealand in terms of our COVID response and our social support. The cost of travel and the testing to the islands, I'll only say this, is the cost of a massive surge in COVID is far worse than the $200 for a COVID test. That same person who's complaining about a $200 for a COVID test, whoever it is, may well walk into some place and run into an infection themselves. Okay? It is about protecting people from casually being able to transmit a virus all over the Bahamas. Very simple. It's a small price to pay for the safety of the nation. On that note, Madam President, I commend the resolution to the favorable consideration of this Honorable Senate. And I now move that the question now be put. Thank you.
Whereas, pursuant to, I'm sorry? Oh, that's right. All those. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be moved, whereas pursuant to Article 29(1) of the Constitution, the Governor General may make a proclamation of emergency, declaring that a state of public emergency for the purposes of that article exists in the Bahamas. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House approves the continuance of the proclamation of emergency made on the 24th day of November 2020 until the 23rd day of May 2021. Affirms the continuance in effect of the emergency powers COVID-19 pandemic risk management regulations made on the 24th day of November 2020 until the 23rd day of May 2021. Affirms the continuance in effect of the emergency powers COVID-19 pandemic risk management order 2020 made on the 24th day of November 2020 until the 23rd day of May 2021, and affirms the continuance in effect of the emergency powers COVID-19 pandemic risk management special provisions order 2020 made on the 24th day of November 2020 until the 23rd day of May 2021. All those in favor, aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is passed.
We don't want to call for a formal division, but I do want to reflect that the opposition did, in fact, as a group, vote against. Yeah, voted against.
Okay.
If the minutes can reflect that, please. Thank you.
Further resolutions?
No further resolutions, Madam President.
Okay, we shall continue with our order of. I almost said service. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings.
I don't think that. When did the House adjourn to?
Notices.
The House adjourned to when? Huh? Yeah. No, when I need to know before I need.
Can I renew all notices standing in the name of the opposition, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam President. I also beg to renew all notice standing in the name of the government on the agenda and give notice that on its rising, the Senate will be adjourned to Thursday, the 4th day of February 2021. Eyeing up the book at 10 a.m. in the morning, ma'am.
Is there a second?
So we will adjourn to a fixed date. Okay.
Is there a second? Okay, that's been moved and
I
seconded.
give notice. There's no seconding for that. I haven't moved the resolution. I haven't moved the adjournment. I just gave notice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you were just choosing the date. You were just choosing your date. Sorry. Okay, orders for clerks, adjournment. Do it again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President. I think you feel the way you are. If you just want to get out of here right now. So I agree. Madam President, I now wish to move that the Senate on its rising be adjourned to Thursday, the 4th day of February 2021 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon, if I may obtain a seconder.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate on its rising adjourn until the Thursday, the 4th day of February 2021. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. You know the table? The I will. No, somebody said nay, she didn't agree. So I said if she wants to stay. The ayes have it.
Madam President, I now move that the Senate be now adjourned.
The Senate is now adjourned.
He usually says nay for some.
Oh, okay.